OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Welcome along to Friday morning's OTB AM. It is a special, looking back on what was a very special night for Irish clubs in Europe. Both St. Pat's and also Sligo Rovers are getting ready now for the third round of qualifying for the Conference League. In Sligo's case, this is the furthest they've ever gone in Europe. A tremendous evening for the league. The Saints going marching on after beating Mura away from home in Slovenia, a team who beat Tottenham Hotspur in the group stages of the Conference League last year, winning 6-5 on the sudden death penalties. And for Sligo Rovers, a very comfortable victory for them against SPL side Motherwell in the end. 3-0 on aggregate, 2-0 on the night at the showgrounds. One to remember for the Bit of Red as they progressed into the third round of qualifying. Delighted to say I've got Aisling O'Reilly here with me this morning as well. Ash, a fantastic night. I think for a lot of us, I know in my case, I watched on a dodgy Slovenian stream to see the penalties with St. Pat's and watched a bit of Sligo over the last two legs. They won very comfortably against a Motherwell side after the Scottish press had called them minnows, which probably I think got their backs up ahead of the side.
I didn't know that. Yeah, it was a tremendous night. Well, it really was for the League of Ireland as a whole. You know, it's great to see those type of results. It's getting the recognition. Obviously, you could talk about the prize money that's coming into it as well. That's a massive boost for them. And yeah, just the games as a whole. Some of the scores, the free kick. I know we're going to talk about it. Shane Blaney for Sligo in the first 3-4 minutes. It was incredible. I'm sure that lifted the showgrounds completely then, and they kicked on from there. And then for Pats to do it in the way they did it in penalties was something else. So yeah, a massive night. Brilliant show lined up to look back on it all. So very exciting, and yeah, it's great for the League of Ireland.
Yeah, no mention of minnows on the back pages this morning. Taking a look at a few of them here. The Mirror, didn't they do well? A play on Motherwell from Sligo after their 2-0 victory at the showgrounds. They now get ready to play against Viking of Norway next week. And Shane Blaney with a wonderful knuckle free kick. Not exactly what you're expecting from a centre-back when he addresses the ball about 40 yards out from goal. And then Max Madigan, the late goal to secure the win. EU Beauties, they've got pictures from both of the games there with Pats and Sligo advancing. And you can see that Joseph Anang, the hero, the on loan West Ham player with St. Pat's, a couple of tremendous saves in normal time, then stopped a couple of the penalties in the shootout. The last penalty from Mura was blazed over the bar as Pats came through by 6-5. We'll be talking about some of the rest of the stories across the back pages later on, but Russell Glow, John Russell, first year as the Sligo boss, Sligo legend as well, helping them to get into the third round of Conference League qualifying. Now I'm delighted to say that we've got Alan Keane with us, another Sligo legend, a man in his 7 seasons of the club, won the league, won the FAI Cup, won the League Cup, won the Setanta Sports Cup as well, won it all effectively with a bit of red, and he is very much the voice of Sligo Rovers on the commentary, and was on commentary with Jessica Ferry last night as well. Alan, how are you getting on this morning?
Morning, how's things?
Well, look, I'd say as a Sligo man and as a Sligo supporter at this stage while you're doing the commentaries as well, this must be one of the best mornings to wake up as a Sligo supporter.
Yeah, I'd say there's a few sore heads now around Sligo this morning after that result. Look, it was just superb from start to finish, and look, it kicked off with, as you said there earlier, with Shane Blaney free kick, absolutely top drawer, and you could feel the atmosphere, the build up to the game. You could feel the buzz in around the ground, and it just gave a lift. And Motherwell really offered nothing, and people might say Motherwell were poor, but that's down to, I suppose, the tactics of Sligo Rovers and not really letting them play.
Well, Graham Alexander, the Motherwell boss, said that after both of the legs, that Motherwell didn't play well, but he gave all credit to Sligo for how they played, particularly after the away leg last week. And to be fair, I think there were many of us who kind of wondered after the UCD game what kind of form Sligo were in going across to Scotland. But that's two really good back-to-back performances. I'm talking about the quality of football here as much as the results themselves.
Yeah, look at you go back 2 weeks ago, they played Ballatown, and no disrespect to Ballatown, they're part-timers, they're, some of them have a day job and stuff like that, and they come over here and effectively Sligo Rovers should be out of Europe. They've missed chance upon chance, and they've took it to penalties. Then fast forward 3 or 4 days, they go, Sligo Rovers play UCD and get played off the park and get beat. So no one gave anyone a chance going over there. Sligo Rovers a chance over there. But sometimes as players, that's what you relish in, because no one's giving you a chance. You're going out there with the freedom. You have a free hit nearly, as they say. And I think once they scored that Keane goal and they held on to something, it then started giving them the belief. And John Russell, the way he is and he's a top-class pro as a player, and I know the in-depth that he goes into in management, he would have just said to the lads, look, there's a massive opportunity here for you. You've nothing to fear. And it's exactly what they've done. I had a little bit of fear last night that the big crowd that was there, sometimes they get kind of a little caught up in it. But no, I think that Shane Blaney free just absolutely settled them into the game, and they kicked on from there.
When it came to the big crowd as well, there was every effort made to try and extend the attendance which was possible at the showgrounds. Like, I'm sure one of the questions, Alan, that's going to come up now with Viking coming up in the next round, and the financial advantages are there from having a big crowd. Is there any possibility that Sligo move this game away from the showgrounds now? Well,
it is going by the UEFA criteria for the third round. It can't. It has to be moved away from Sligo. But I know behind the scenes here, speaking to one or two of the committee and the chairman last night, they're doing every best effort to keep it in Sligo. They really want it, and I think taking the game away from here would kill kind of a little bit of a buzz, so the fans, having to go across it, probably more than likely be Tala. It's probably the next best the stadium, but I don't know what's exactly the criteria, but I know that the club are definitely working on trying to keep it here. I think it has to be a 4,000 to 4,500 seater stadium, and I think Sligo Rovers have 3,900 or 3,800, so they're a bit short, and you can't put in a temporary stand going by UEFA standards either. So it will be disappointing if it's moved away from Sligo, but I'm sure the club will do their best efforts to keep it in Sligo.
And Alan, I'm sure the team themselves, being used to playing on the pitch, all those type of things will really stand to them in these type of games.
Yeah, that's it. Like, as a player, you're used to all your surroundings, you're used to things. So when you get moved away for your home game away somewhere else, it is difficult, because I don't think you feel that buzz that does be around the town here. Once it's shifted across up to Dublin, yeah, there's a massive support in Dublin as well for Sligo Rovers, but everyone will want it here in Sligo, because it'll bring that buzz. But it'll bring that buzz providing they get a good result in the away leg first, which is away first next Thursday.
Yeah, even from covering Dundalk in the last few seasons, where they've had to go to the Aviva Stadium and they've had to go to Tala. Notwithstanding the last run in the group stage of the Europa League was during the pandemic, so that kind of changed things as well. But it doesn't quite feel the same when your team has to go to someone else's ground to play. As great as these occasions are, and playing teams like Arsenal and Molde in their case, it isn't quite, and for Sligo particularly, having to come all the way across the country to play as well.
No, it's not. And I was part of the Dundalk Europa League side in 2016, and we had to. I remember, we were up around Dundalk, and your next game you're playing, I think it was St Petersburg, and we had to go to Tala to play them there, and it just wasn't the same kind of buzz. You're leaving Dundalk to come and play in Tala. So they have a great committee down here in Sligo, great chairman Tommy Higgins, Colin Feely CEO, so I know for a fact that they'll do everything in their right. I think there's an inspection in the next couple of days, day or two, and hopefully that's passed and they get to have it here, because it's great. Like, the fans and everything, it'll just mean a lot to the town as well, because during the week here, the buzz around the place, and then when the Motherwell fans arrived in Wednesday, it was some atmosphere, and you could feel the buzz around the town. Yeah,
look, it's the memories from nights like tonight that will resonate and stay around with Sligo supporters for a lot longer than the money coming in. But from a financial point of view, this is going to bring in close to €1 million by the end of this run. It's 850,000 already in the bank. When I think of Sligo a few years ago having to fundraise quite heavily, this is such an important injection of money into the club.
Massive, because I think the budget, I think, is 1.8 million for the year. So you're talking that 850k straight off is absolutely massive, and it'll stand to them for the next year or two. But it's important as well that they do try and qualify again for Europe next year, and I think that's where the financial rewards are. And it is difficult. Our league is a really difficult league, because you look at the league at the minute, like there's 4, 5, 6 teams vying for that European 3 European spots. Like, so for John as well, it'll be a massive boost. He might be able to strengthen his squad to have a big push in the league come towards the end of the year.
How important a signing has Aidan Keane been? We mentioned outside the show, it's not that long ago he was playing in Scotland himself. He's come in, scored a lot of goals for you so far this season.
Yeah, like Aidan Keane, like he reminds me of when he first joined. He reminds me of that Mark Quigley, the way he plays. He's just the instincts of him in around the box, his cleverness, and you've seen it for the second goal last night. he's picked the ball up. He's put it around the defender on a plate for Max Mata. And there was parts of the game last night where he's tried to chip the keeper from a distance, and he did do it at one stage, but it was a free out, so it was offside or something. But he's a top class there, and it was great business by John to get him tied down to 2024. But I tell you what, there will be clubs looking at him, and he could go for a fee if he keeps up the performances that he's putting in.
You mentioned the journey you've had so far. I mean, McGinty basically keeps Sligo in Europe in that game against Bala going back a few weeks ago. Now you can look forward for the first time ever to playing the third round of qualifying for a tournament when it comes to this new Conference League. What's the feeling about going to Viking and playing Norway next week, or playing in Norway next week even?
You see, that's it. You just don't know. It's like, as you said, Ballatown. People were booking their trips for Motherwell, and they were lucky to get through. So people now are kind of going as the rounds go on. I'm sure a lot of people are googling Viking last night and googling Viking this morning, and they're no great. Won't be any easy pushover either. But it's important that next Thursday that they go there and they be able to take a result back home to Sligo, or wherever the game may be, because it's very important. And I think that's the story of the season so far for Sligo Rovers, that when they're the underdogs, they really, really perform. When they're the favourites tag, i.e. Ballatown, the UCD game and a few others, they don't seem to perform. But I think the lads, John will keep them grounded, and I'm sure this morning he's looking forward to the Westford Youth game at the weekend in the FAI Cup.
It's a slightly more complex trip this time round to get to Norway, I think, as well, because a few mates of mine who were Sligo supporters went to both the away games, and ahead of the Bala game they got a couple of nights in Liverpool, and a lot went over and kind of took in either Glasgow or Edinburgh on the way to Motherwell last time out. Two relatively easy trips to make. This time round probably a little bit more difficult to get to Norway. As Pats fans, probably be talking to some of the Pats camp later, but they had to go, I think, into Austria and then go from Austria to Slovenia. So I'd say planes, trains, automobiles will have to be worked out for people going to Norway next week.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of places already being looked at and logistically, but I think the club are looking to put on a chartered flight, and they're working on that as well at the minute. So hopefully that they can get that, because there's no doubt about it, they'll pack that out. There was a couple of years back, I think it was 2010, we went to Poltava and they had to put on a chartered flight. They could have put on 3 or 4 chartered flights. The fans are just, I think they're caught up in the European buzz now as well, and some do like the trips, the getting the bus, then a train, then another train across, so it's all part and parcel of the European trips, I suppose. But it is logistically, it is a difficult trip for them.
I'm going to ask you about John Russell and the impact that he's had, because there were plenty of people who looked at, say, when Buckley left and wondering what direction Sligo were going to go in, and there have been, as you mentioned, a few kind of ropey domestic results along the way, but it seems that he's got that team really playing for him now.
Yeah, it is, and John would have worked obviously under Deane for a while, so he'd known his players, he would have known exactly what he wants. But I'm not sure the input he had when Liam was there. So I think we're probably now seeing the input that John would like to put in himself. John will want the players playing on the front foot. He's a clever in his way as well. He'll do his research on every team, everything, and he'll know how to manage the players, and he's very good like that. He's not only he's a nice man as well, so he'll look at the lads, I suppose, on a personal level as well, but also he won't be afraid to let it known if he's not happy. And I think the impact he's made from his first game, Derry City beating them at home. Derry were flying it, and next thing they beat them at home. And yes, they had a few ropey results, and a few fans were like, wrong decision, shouldn't have just done that. But it's football is patience, and it's paid off, This is the first time in the history of the club that they've got past the second round, so absolutely delighted for Rustler and obviously the club.
Yeah, that's a magnificent run. Alan, thanks a million for joining us on OTB AM this morning.
No problem. Thanks to yourselves.
Delighted to say that we've got Alanna Cunnane from OTB SPORTS who's going to be joining us in a moment as well. She was at the showgrounds last night, Ash. I mean, it has to be one of those things you go along to watch your own team succeed like that. She got a couple of fan videos which we're going to play out in a few minutes too, and League of Ireland fans are often long suffering, And when you get results like this, they're there to be cherished. And it's perhaps even all the more special that Pats went through in the same night as well.
It's massive, it really is, and this is why you're a fan, this is why you're a supporter, especially if it's your own club as well. You know, these nights don't come around too often. As we said, they had, 4, I think, wins in Europe before these games, and it's just unbelievable for them now to be on this run, and to see John, a former player, in there as well, taking them, to this as well, is something else. And it's just special, it really is, and we'll see what happens now after this and how far they can go on, but it's massive for the club. It's only going to drive the club on further. It shows what they can do. It highlights the League of Ireland. It's just brilliant, and yeah, I'm sure they will kick on, because last night I thought was really impressive. They're coming up against a good Motherwell side. They're a good Scottish Premiership team, and yeah, I think they put in a really good performance, and yeah, it's exciting now to see where they can go. Not to forget Shamrock
Rovers as well, and we're celebrating Pats and Sligo today, but Rovers been a really good performance against Ludogorets on Tuesday night. The damage was done with the goals that they conceded in the first leg, but they went out in their shield, and they'll still be hopeful of progressing in Europe next week. So I'd say Alanna Cunnane is with us now, who was at the showgrounds last night. How does that rank, Alanna, of nights that you've gone to the showgrounds, getting through to the third round of qualifying in Europe?
It's definitely up there. Well, I suppose I was the product of the 2010 kind of area where we won the 2 FAI Cups and then the league. So I'd say now there was a few more that had that kind of passion ignited in them last night, from grown men crying to little kids being over the moon. It was an amazing night. Yeah, we're just looking at some of the fan footage here at the moment for those who are joining us on social media on OTB AM. I mean, it's packed to the rafters, Alanna, is the first thing. As Alan was mentioning, unfortunately, UEFA weren't allowing temporary stands to win, where they were trying to increase the capacity beyond the 4,500. But anyone who could get a ticket that was a Sligo Rovers fan to go in and watch that game against Motherwell last night, and a sizable Scottish support came over too, were packed into the showgrounds. Yeah, definitely will. And there was even a few that didn't get a ticket that maybe were wanting to be in there. I know there was talk maybe of the mall setting up a screen in town. Now that didn't pan out in the end, but that was the demand for the tickets. It tells you all you need to know in that regard, because there was just masses and masses of people. I haven't seen the showgrounds really like it in years, to be honest. And as you're saying there, it's just bringing that buzz back to the club and highlighting the product that we have in the League of Ireland. I think, sometimes we often kind of give out about it, maybe in that, a lot of our best players maybe end up going overseas, but that just tells you the calibre of the product that is there. And, you get days like this then the odd time for all the hardship of it for those fans, I guess. And tell us about the reaction 3 minutes in, Shane Blaney's free kick. What was it like? Yeah, I think it just said everyone's stunned. I'd love to actually watch it back, because it went in and there was just like an oh my god kind of way, because it was from a massive distance, and I know he had mentioned even in the build-up that he does like those distances, but yeah, I think it was just stunned and then just jubilation, I guess, the jumps from the seats and the absolute screams, because while the Scottish media were calling Sligo Rovers in the build-up to this the Irish minnows, maybe the Irish minnows could pull out a result over 90 minutes, but to do it over 180 is a different story, and it just tells you that Sligo Rovers were the better team on the day and did in fact deserve that result. It wasn't a fluke, I guess. I think it kind of surprised the Motherwell goalkeeper a little bit too. I was watching the game on Premier Sports, and their commentary team were thinking he shouldn't be getting beaten from that kind of range, but I think genuinely he thought defender is coming up to address the ball here. In all likelihood, we're going to defend our 18-yard box, and he's probably just clipping the ball in. You're not expecting a knuckleball free kick from that kind of range to be shot on goal. And as you say, by a defender too. Now, as he was saying, even in the build-up, like I was just mentioning there, he does have it in his locker. But they were probably looking at this defender walking up to the ball and going, "Oh God, here we go," as you're saying. But when I was chatting to him there afterwards, he was just saying, he struck it so well that it just floated into the top corner. It was a brilliant goal to watch, and the showgrounds loved that one. Yeah, Shifty Lad in contact on YouTube in the comments. Well, it seems League of Ireland teams might be able to hold their own in the Scottish League, Division 1 in England also. Pity we don't really appreciate it here. And I'm included in that, being more of a GAA man. Congratulations to Sligo Rovers. I think possibly a bit of a stretch to say that Sligo will be competing in the SPL or any of our League of Ireland teams, even Shamrock Rovers competing in the SPL. It would be a hell of a step up. But when you think of
Alanna, I was just looking back. We were chatting to Alan Keane a few minutes ago, and he was on with the Bala game, and you look at like how important McGinty was, and then next thing he gets transferred away. This time of year is actually pretty difficult for League of Ireland clubs, and Sligo felt that too, where teams come in with cash for players, and we were talking about on the show last night. Nathan was chatting to a League of Ireland agent about how they just can't compete with the money that's available even in League 1 and League 2 in England, and players are going to get taken away usually for very small release clauses. But Sligo were able to just keep going, and you've put in a new goalkeeper there for the last couple of games, and he's done pretty well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you caught it watching the stream well, but I noticed there was a moment, and it's not getting much traction, I don't think. It was well into the second half, but Luke McNicholas, the guy you're talking about who replaced Ed McGinty, and has stood up to that. It stood into those boots superbly, but he came out and was doing the sweeper keeper, came well out of his line, well past the box to clear the ball, and then headed it. I couldn't believe it. Went the whole way out and then headed it. That just tells you the confidence, I suppose, that was in that squad. And it does have a mass amount of leaders too, because let's say even Cawley went off and he passed the armband to McDonnell, and then McDonnell was going off and he passed it to Buckley. And you weren't kind of going, oh God, all of them are leaders in that Sligo Rovers squad. And then you'd forget, Greg Bulger wasn't even playing, So I think, like you're saying there, League of Ireland clubs do kind of get hit when the transfer window rolls around, but there is that quality there, and other players only too delighted to step up into those positions.
Yeah, look, when your keeper's willing to come out and head the ball and sweep keep like that, that's just total football. And look, in fairness, we were saying to Alan a few minutes ago, Sligo played really nice football over these two legs. All the focus in the UK is going to be that Motherwell have been embarrassed and knocked out in the second round of Europa League qualifying, but that doesn't give credit to how well Sligo have played over the last 180 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. And I just heard a touch of Alan there before he came on. I think that's a credit to John Russell, but also it's a credit to Liam Buckley. I think he's kind of got a bit forgotten about in all this, because he's the one who got them there. Let's not not remember that, because he's the one who got them to this stage. Now John has done superb work since he came in, and I'd say he himself, I was watching him on the sideline keenly last night, he was probably having flashbacks. I'm sure you're aware of that Rosenborg tie in 2014. Sligo came home and were expected to win that one, and were I think it was 3-1 up with 77 minutes gone in the second leg, and then it all fell to pieces, 4-3 then in the end, and he was playing in that team. So I'd say he knew well, how to manage the expectations and kind of keep the nerves at bay. Even though I'd say if you watch back the footage, his nerves weren't too good coming into the second half there.
Well, Anna, you were chatting to, one of the men at the moment who's going to have a free kick that's going to be remembered for many a year. You were chatting to Shane Blaney last night.
Yeah, he was in flying form. I don't think he could quite believe the result himself. He knew as he said, he had the free kick in his locker, but just then after that, I think he was kind of just soaking it in a little bit. And then, as ever, looking forward to the next game and putting it all behind them. I think they were all saying that, they have the Norway tie obviously next week, but the FAI Cup first, and Sligo, as we all know, went out first round in the FAI Cup last year, so they'll be looking to avenge that and put on a performance there as well, I'd say. All
right, we can hear from Shane Blaney there talking to Alanna after the game at the Showgrounds.
Shane, a massive performance from yourself tonight. What are the emotions like right now after that win?
It's brilliant. Obviously a class night for the club and for us as players, and the crowd was unbelievable. But it's just a really, really class night.
The goal had everyone stunned just a few minutes in. Talk us through that and what you were kind of thinking.
Look, it was a good distance for me. I liked them. I liked that it was a wee bit further out, and I lined it up, and I seen kind of last second he kind of shifted to his right hand post. He thought I might cut it back, but I've just put it over the far side. So thankfully it's snuck in, and it's brilliantly.
And the feeling afterwards?
Brilliant. Obviously class, but I knew we had to focus straight away, because we couldn't get carried away. It was 3 minutes in, and we know the quality they have throughout their team, and they're obviously playing at a higher level, and they have clever midfielders who can slip a ball in and tear you apart in one pass. So we knew we had to be switched on, and thankfully we were over the 90 in both legs.
And some people are saying that's the most kind of electric they've seen the Showgrounds in years. Would you kind of echo that?
Well, I've not seen much of the Showgrounds in years, but tonight that was unbelievable. So I wouldn't imagine there being many topping that. But it's incredible to think we have another one coming now in 2 weeks' time. So.
And then on defensive duties, then you were clearing the lines quite a lot also. What was that like, kind of keeping all sides happy that way. You're on the score sheet and kept a clean sheet as well.
Yeah, look, a clean sheet's massive. We knew that coming into the tie. Obviously, a clean sheet was going to get us through. So to get 2 over both legs, it's what you want as a defender. And thankfully, we defended really well from the front, not just us as a back four. Like from Aidan Keane and Max Mata, when he came on, we defended so well from the front, and thankfully now we're through.
And are you looking forward to that tie already? I know you have to say now the cup is first, but
it is. This cup's so important. Like, and Sunday's massive for us because we know what happened last year in the cup. The first round we got knocked out, so it's still there. It's a chip on our shoulders, and we have to go out on Sunday and put in the same type of performance and really get the place going so that we can get a good cup run going.
And just when you mentioned the chip on your shoulder, also a lot of the build-up was talking about the minnows, quote-unquote, Sligo. What was that kind of in reaction to you guys? Was that a bit of motivation?
Not really. Like we obviously it came after the first leg, so no, I wouldn't pay attention much to that stuff. Like, it's obviously just newspapers, but Motherwell knew themselves what they were coming into. They wouldn't have been. Their manager wouldn't have been calling us minnows. Like, they knew coming here tonight they were going to have a tough task, and they did, and we limited them to very few chances again, and thankfully took a 2-0 win.
Congratulations, Shane. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, Alanna, you can definitely feel the confidence of Shane there. And is this something throughout the team? Do you feel that buzz when you're speaking to them? Because definitely on the pitch you can see that they're really clicking.
Yeah, I think so in one way, Aisling, yes, but I suppose their problem at the minute is kind of consistency. You know, they can pull it out in these so-called big games, you know, the European games, but just at the week before they had lost to UCD. So I'd say that's what he's kind of conscious of there when he's saying that you know, they need to get the focus on and have as much build up into that cup game as they did to this game, because I suppose that's the mark of a great team, isn't it? When they can stay consistent throughout and have those big performances, but also pull it out of the bag when they're playing a different quality of team as well.
Well, I've no doubt the credit unions around Sligo Town are going to be getting hit with people trying to get to Norway next Thursday for the first leg against Viking, and then probably going to Dublin most likely for the tie in the round the week afterwards, so the second leg. Alanna, thanks a million for joining us after what was a momentous night at the Showgrounds last night.
That'll be some night for Sligo Rovers, well, if they have to play that one in Shamrock Rovers. But yeah, thanks a million.
Go on, we'll talk to you later on. The Rovers may well be a home for a different Rovers next week, depending on what happens, but the debate will go on about that. We'll chat to Dan McDonnell about it later as well. Dan was kind of very sobering at full time in both of the games last night. He was saying, like, fantastic for Pats, fantastic for Rovers. Now there's all these kind of logistical question marks about what's going to happen with these second legs in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll have a chat about that in a bit. We're going to be talking a little bit later in the programme to Sue Ronan, the former Republic of Ireland manager. She's on her way to watch the Euro 2022 final, where Germany, the 9-time winners, are going to be up against England, the hosts, and pretty much the overwhelming favourites going into the final on Sunday at Wembley. A crowd in excess of 80,000 will be in attendance for that. Won't quite have 80,000 at Croke Park this year for the ladies football finals, but we're looking forward to that too. We will have Jenny Rispin, former dual player, Meath ladies football legend, with us as part of the Quick Picks, because Ash, the rest of the team have gone and taken a long weekend.
Looking forward to this weekend now, absolutely. It's a big one. To be able to do back-to-back, it will be something really special if they can do it. But they're up against a really tough Kerry team. You know, they put up 4-10 against Mayo in the semi-final, a really good Mayo team. I just think it's going to be two completely different styles of football they play. You know, you see the sort of the directness of Kerry, and obviously Meath have perfected this defensive system, but well able to get up the pitch and score and be exciting in that attacking style that they do have too. But it's so different that it's so hard to call. But yeah, really excited to see which way it goes. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a close one, that's for sure.
To steal a phrase from the great Phil Jackson, does it feel a little bit like the last dance for Meath as well? I know this is 5 years of fantastic success, you know, coming through the intermediate finals and then winning the senior title on the back of the intermediate, which is the ultimate fairy tale story. But when you've got some of the key players getting ready to go to Australia, given the changes in the AFLW season, which means that in all likelihood Vicky Wall is going to be committed entirely to playing Aussie rules football next season, does this feel like kind of a chance to go back to back with the strongest panel that Meath could possibly have?
Yeah, because you're talking about superstar players there. Vicky Wall, Orla Lally, they're big players. So to have girls come in and replace them, you know, it's tough to ever replace girls like that. So in a sense, maybe, I'm not sure how it's going to go with the girls over there and if they'll be back or what way it's all going to work out. We don't know, if they're going to like it, if it's going to work out for them. No one knows yet. But yeah, it does feel that if they do go and they stay, that it's a massive loss for Meath football. But we do have the girls there on the bench. There's girls on the bench that are just as good as, a lot of the starting 15 that could easily settle in there. And we're given a chance. We've seen so many of the girls come on and really cement their place as well. So we've seen that time and time again. So yeah, I wouldn't be too afraid of girls coming in and taking a place there. But it is massive for me to be able to do back-to-back. Like, there was a lot of talk, is this a fluke that they went on and did it? Obviously, they backed it up with performances this year, but they really want to do this back-to-back to be able to say, it wasn't a fluke that we went on, one intermediate, one senior, this is a great team. They want to be seen as that. So I do think that they'll want to go all the way and be able to prove some of those people wrong. But yeah, it's very tough to call because Kerry have been coming quietly. They're teams that know each other as well. They've met each other last year in particular in the league final in Croke Park. That was a brilliant game that day. And Kerry, they've just been improving constantly throughout the championship. And the likes of Louise Niemeyer-Hertig, look, she's been playing for...
She's been shooting the lights out as well.
Shooting the lights out well, and she's been playing for years. She deserves to be there in the All-Ireland final, and it's exciting to see her play there in Croke Park in an All-Ireland final. This is what it's about. So, yeah, it's a really tough one to call, but I think we're going to be in for a cracker, and I'm sure it'll be hopefully more high scoring than... Hold
your prediction though. Don't give the prediction away.
I'm saying nothing. Yeah, I'm sure you've no idea what way I'm going. Well,
yeah, I'm sure when the graphic goes up, it's like Aisling O'Reilly, Kerry. They're going to bridge the 10-year gap. I'm delighted to say that we're now joined by the Sligo Rovers manager John Russell, who's on the road at the moment, but joins us after what was a magnificent night for Sligo last night. John, how are you getting on this morning?
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, good morning, guys. Really proud of all the players and the staff and the performance last night. It was a big moment for the club, and we created history. There was a challenge put out to the players before the game last night. Could we be the first team in the history of Sligo Rovers to qualify for a third of the European competition, and they produced a good.
Yeah, we were chatting to Alan Keane a little bit earlier on, and he was saying that probably what impressed him the most was that you go back to, say, the Bala game where you were on the ropes and it could well have seen you exit Europe on that night. Now you've come out in this Motherwell tie and played extremely well in both legs, taking even the away leg into account, which is a very professional performance, helped by Aidan's great goal last week too. But to play really well over these 180 minutes must be very pleasing for you.
Yeah, for us as a club and for the League of Ireland, to go away and beat a SPL team and then to bring them back home and finish the job was huge, and I think you were disappointed in the return leg against Bala, our performance at home in front of a big crowd. We rode our luck a bit on the night, but it was important as a group just to get through that first round, and I felt the players carried out the game plan perfectly in the second round. We were fully deserving of the win, and for us now going forward, it's about raising the bar and having that belief as a club in Ireland that we can compete at this stage and get through rounds in Europe, because we know the rewards financially for the club, and it helps us push it on and off the pitch.
Yeah, it's massive. If you've got a budget of around 1.8 a year and already there's 850,000 in the can, that's not including the money that's going to come in from the two games against Viking, with the prize money, with obviously we'll talk maybe in a little bit about where the game is going to be, but you take the ticket sales into account as well. This is a huge financial injection for the club.
That's massive, yeah. We don't have a big benefactor or people pumping money into the club in Sligo. We have our model. It's community run. The committee do an unbelievable job, and the fundraising that goes on every year to keep the club full time. We're developing the academy, but it costs money, and fortunately at the moment we don't have a big TV deal in the League of Ireland, and prize money wouldn't be that big. So when you do get a chance in Europe to get through rounds, you've got to grab it with both hands, and the finances will be a big help. There are plans to redevelop the stadium and build training facilities, so hopefully this will accelerate all that process.
Yeah, well, especially when you consider that there's multiples to be earned compared to winning the League of Ireland. Like, even getting a result in one of these games in Europe can be worth as much as the prize money for winning the League of Ireland. So that just maybe goes to show the importance of getting a run if you do win a few games in these competitions.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing for us now is we've got to make sure we get into those European spots in the league. We want to be competing in there next year, whether it's through the cup or getting into the top three, because we know that it's key to get this money in, and to grow the club, you need to be able to compete in Europe, to attract players, and it's going to be massive that we capitalise on this. Sometimes you have to have a lucky draw as well. Sometimes you get big teams in the first round and you don't have really a good chance of getting through, but thankfully the two teams we played so far, we've had a game plan and we've executed it.
And last night, John, 3 minutes in, Shane Blaney lifts the place completely. What was it like on the sideline and the reaction?
It was a special moment. I said it before, European nights are special occasions for all the players, for the fans, and the atmosphere in the ground, around the town, even building up into the game, was amazing. And to get a start like that, you saw that goal in any league around the world, it'll be getting replayed every couple of hours. And for Shane, I see him in training every morning. He practices penalties and free kicks, and for him to step up in that setting and that moment and to score a goal was incredible.
It also must settle you then on the sideline, because if you get the lead, things can settle down a small bit then.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always going to be nervousness coming into the second round or second leg. Motherwell, they had a good look at us in the first round and they were hurting, and when we played them over there, and I think we fully deserved to get the 1-0 win, but their crowd were booing, and you could see and sense that the frustration from them. So we knew there was going to be a reaction coming over last night, and we knew we had to start on the front foot and try and get an early goal and not just sit back for the whole game and try and protect the lead, and to take a 1-0 lead early in the game. It really calmed the nerves and helped us grow into the game.
Yeah, something Graham Alexander was talking about after they were booed off the pitch. He was saying, look, it's understandable that the fans will have an expectation, but he was very quick to put praise back onto your team by saying, look, Sligo have come over here, they've defended very well as a unit, they've scored their goal, they've come away with a very much deserved 1-0 win. And basically he was saying his side deserved the flack they were getting from their fans because of the fact that they were so well constrained by you guys. He was very quick to give credit back. Yeah,
I know. I think it's nice to get those compliments because, we have top players here, and I've said it before, our league is probably underrated, and for us to get that result, it probably raised the profile again. And, we've got young players at Sligo Rovers that have huge potential, huge talent, and to play on the European stage, it allows them to showcase their abilities. And, we're doing an incredible amount of work. It's a full-time professional club, and players want to improve every day, and the staff are working really hard with them. And moments like that last night, you're coming up against players that are perceived as a higher level and a higher league, and we're well capable of competing against these teams. And it was a big night for the club and a big statement. Is there a little bit of a balancing act over the next few weeks now, because you'll want to progress in the FAI Cup this coming weekend, and then you want to keep your league form around the two legs against Viking as well? It's a very important period coming up for you now, because you mentioned you don't want this to be a one-off run in Europe, potentially miss out on the European places for next season. You've got to try and balance it off across a few competitions now in the coming weeks. Yeah, it's going to be a big challenge. The club probably hasn't experienced that before, and you've seen it last year with Bohemians. They had a fabulous run in Europe, and then they ended up getting to the cup final and just missing out winning it, and they missed out in Europe. So you can see how quickly it can change. So for us, we've got to try and balance the squad as best we can, and rotate where we can without compromising any games and still get results. But look, the players are hungry. They're well capable of going on a run now, and the challenge is to get back into those European places in the league. We were talking about earlier about when you came in and when Bucko left, and we were wondering where Sligo's form was going to go after that. How much are you enjoying this adventure as manager of the club now? Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's a work in progress, and I've been in the job probably 2 months now, and an incredible amount of work has gone in, and you're trying to change the culture within the club, and change the mentality of the players, and give them belief that we can raise our levels and go and compete at a higher level. We want to be competing, probably getting through rounds, and believing that as an Irish club we can go and get these results. But you got to do your work day to day. It's when you come into the training ground, it's going through your principles of play, it's the gym sessions, the video analysis stuff, our team meetings, all that stuff feeds into the performances on the pitch, and trying to create that style of play and an identity. And for the fans last night to walk out the showgrounds after witnessing that performance, that's what we want to be giving back.
And John, you were involved back in 2014 against Rosenborg. There was heartbreak that night. It probably felt like one that got away. Does nights like last night make up for it a small bit?
It really does, yeah. I was asked that question actually after the game last night, and Dave Cawley, club captain who played last night, was outstanding. Himself and Dave were in the middle of the park against Rosenborg in both those games, and it's one where you still have, well, I did have sleepless nights. It was a huge missed opportunity for the club to go 1-0 up at home in the return leg, 3-1 in aggregate, and still get knocked out. It was devastating. So, last week was probably one that helped soften the blow of that Rosenborg game.
You probably learn a lot from those occasions. Even when you lose like that, you probably know going into last night's game, you probably think of those moments and think, right, what did I learn from that?
Yeah, there's always learning from past experiences, and especially from failures and losses. So for me, going into the second leg, I felt we needed to be on the front foot, but obviously execute the game plan and be ready for any adjustments that they might make. And I thought they might change shape within the game, and thankfully they didn't, but we would have prepared for all that. And I felt the substitutions that we made in the game were the right ones at the right time, and gave us fresh legs, and we were always a threat to the counter in the second half. And it wasn't that we sat back and it was we were defending the whole game. I thought we were fully deserving of the 2-0 victory in the end.
Yeah, look, that was seen with the second goal. I mean, Mada finished it really well. Good work by Keane for the second goal too. Like, that's exactly what you want. A clinical moment, just to any nerves that might have been there about Motherwell getting back into the game late on. Everything was lifted when that goal went in. You could almost, kind of watching the game even on TV, you could feel within the ground just that relief that was saying, right, we're into round 3 once the ball hit the net. Yeah,
there was relief. I suppose it's just that thing with Irish clubs. There's always sob stories and what if and the heroic effort. But and it was important last night that there was none of that. That we came in. There was pressure on us. There was probably a bit more pressure on Motherwell, and we were still seen as the underdogs. But for Irish clubs to compete and be beating a SPL team home and away, it's huge. And to get the second goal, it does calm the nerves, and it shows again the potential of the players. The product is there on the pitch.
John, just one other question before we bring in Garry Buckley here. Just wondering what your thoughts are. I mean, the club is obviously just going to have a think now about the home leg in a couple of weeks and where it's potentially going to play. What is your feeling on it? It looks like it's probably going to be moved over to Dublin, though.
Yeah, my feeling on it will be to try and get it at the showgrounds. Whatever criteria we need to try and meet or get the ground up to speed in the next. We've got just under 2 weeks. Hopefully, between the club and the FAI, that we can try and work with UEFA and host it and play it at the showgrounds, because that's our home ground. You want our home supporters to be able to walk up to the showgrounds and witness us playing good football against the top opposition.
Well, John, congrats on the great results and the best of luck over the next couple of weeks with Viking.
Brilliant. Cheers, guys.
We've got Garry Buckley ready to join us, I think, as well, to look back on what was a momentous night. Garry, what a night for the club.
Yeah, great night. Jeez, everything went so well for us. I thought we performed on the night, and well deserved, to be honest, over the 2 legs.
Yeah, I mean, the performance has to be quite pleasing, because understandably nerves could kick in. Like Motherwell were talking about a response. That was one of the things Graham Alexander was saying after the first leg last week, that they were going to go to Ireland and they were going to try and get an early goal and turn this tie around. But instead, it goes completely the opposite way. And we're absolutely, talking up this free kick from last night, but what an amazing goal.
Yeah, unbelievable goal. I suppose it's a perfect start for us. Ada does brilliant to make the free kick, and it was some start for us before, some strike from us in the half. I know I couldn't do that anyway, to be honest, but yeah, it's a great strike, and to be fair, he has that in the locker to Shane, a great left foot, and perfect start for us. And from there, it was kind of comfortable. We knew we had a 2-goal lead, and to be honest, we were comfortable all two legs, didn't really concede much as in chances and stuff. So as soon as that went, then we kind of, in the back of our heads, we knew if we kept the same performance going, that we were through.
Yeah, it was a bit less dramatic than Pats, who had to rely on their goalkeeper to make a few good saves in Slovenia last night and having to take the penalties. But I'm sure, having had the drama against Bala a couple of rounds ago, you're probably thinking, well, I don't mind a more composed and quiet night at the showgrounds where you score a goal early and score a goal late and progress pretty comfortably.
No, that's not ideal anyway. With the the chances we coughed up against Bala and stuff, and they'd done unbelievable for us to get through before he left. And so over the 2 legs, I suppose in the first leg, Luke done brilliant for us as well. Half chances here and there, pot shots outside the box. But I suppose John set us up brilliantly there for this leg and done his great homework on Motherwell. And we thought, like I said, we were comfortable enough, solid enough in the back 4, back 5, and like I said, well deserved over the 2 legs to go through.
Can you tell us a bit about what John has changed over the last couple of months? Because he said to us just a few minutes ago that he was coming in to maybe try and just get the spirits up again, maybe change the culture a little bit, and maybe a little bit of change in the style of the football. What's John brought since he's come
in? I suppose probably the biggest thing for me that I know is probably just intensity. Obviously Liam had his ways and stuff, and he wanted to kind of control football, which is his way of doing things, which is fine. But I suppose John has his own ways, and he wants to kind of be kind of aggressive on and off the ball, and even on the ball, moving it quickly and stuff like that. And I suppose it took us a few weeks to get used to it and stuff like that. But we're reaping the rewards now, and in Europe, that kind of style is suiting us as well. And hopefully going forward now into the league games as well, we kind of kick up the table as well, not just in Europe, but. Big thing for me is John is the intensity and even the training and stuff like that. We're in more often than not than with Liam, but I'm enjoying it, really enjoying it. It's great when you're winning games. That's the great thing. But it's great when you're going through rounds in Europe and everybody's happy and stuff like that. But so far so good. It's going really, like, you know.
Yeah, because we were chatting about the need for consistency, and probably, look, the squad is going to be tested a little bit over the next while. Want to progress in the FAI Cup, want to try and go through in the 2 legs against Viking, which are coming up. As you say, want to shoot up the league table. Sometimes when a team has a run in Europe, it affects their form domestically. You want to make sure that doesn't happen, particularly over the next few weeks. And bringing that kind of consistency is going to be really important, because before you went to Scotland, I remember that UCD game where you were dropping points, and it's going to be a case now of, hopefully from your point of view, not allowing your domestic form to dip here.
No, absolutely not. That's not ideal. You can't get carried away in Europe and stuff like that, because the league is the bread and butter. That will ultimately get us Europe again next year. If we don't make Europe again next year, then all this is a waste for nothing. Like, so, yeah, it's back to the bread and butter now on Sunday in the FAI Cup, and like, there's another big occasion there to get to the Viva as well, which is a huge game for the club again. So it's kind of heads down, back into training again tomorrow. Not ideal, obviously, with the games coming thick and fast, but that's the joy of it, and that's being a footballer. But focus now is on Sunday, and then we'll worry about Norway next week.
It was a massive night for the fans as well. It looked electric watching on. What was it like on the pitch?
Yeah, it was great. Jesus, I've played many cup finals and league deciders, and that was well up there for atmosphere. Jesus, I suppose the goal at the start was a great help for us as well. They kind of got behind us and kicked on from there. But yeah, Jesus, showgrounds was rocking. It was really impressive, to be fair. And if we have that through every game this year, close to that, then we'll find it hard to lose games in the showgrounds this year. It's just getting that every week, which is great. But yeah, geez, the fans were brilliant.
Yeah, it builds that bond with the supporters too. Like, chatting to some Sligo Rovers fans who've gone to the 2 away legs and have had, let's be fair, a good time going to England primarily. I think for most of them going to Bala first, and many of them went into Liverpool, and then some of them went along to Scotland to watch the games against Motherwell. Now they've got a trip to Norway. As players, is your feeling that you can now give Viking a right good fight over these 2 legs coming up?
I don't see why not. I suppose the way John and Ryan Casey do their homework, there's no stone unturned, I suppose. We know now that as long as we turn up, put a shape, keep a clean sheet, that we'll have a chance. We've got Aidan Keane and Max Matt up front, that we get chances, we're going to score them. So I suppose the big thing for us is that we kept a clean sheet in the last 2 games, and that's given us opportunities to go and win. But yeah, we'll be fearful of no one really in this stage of the groups or this stage of qualifiers. But
Final
like
one
I said,
for you,
it's just
Garry, before you go, is that we're going to be talking Pats a little bit later on. It was just nice as a supporter of the League of Ireland to watch within about kind of 15 minutes of each other, just a kind of a yes tweet coming from both clubs about the fact that they qualified with Pats coming through. Like, as a League of Ireland man, and even having watched Shamrock Rovers play quite well against Ludogorets, you guys are rivals throughout the season, but to have had 3 really good Irish performances in Europe this week is fantastic for the league.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. In the Shamrock Rovers game, I was willing them to go on. You know, even when they got to 2-0, I was buzzing for them, because it's great for us as players to see that playing the league, and seeing Shamrock Rovers go 2-0 up against Ludogorets was great. And obviously saw the result after, was buzzing for Pats as well. That's what it is like. Because to be honest, we are the league, so it's great for us. And I know that they'll see us do well as well. But like, to be honest, we're a big family with the league, and we should be all looking after each other, you know.
Well, look, Garry, best luck getting ready for FAI Cup this Sunday, and then getting ready for the trip across to Norway for next Thursday as well. It's a very exciting period for the Bit of Red. Thanks a million for joining us on OTB AM.
No worries. Thanks very much. Cheers.
And OTB AM is brought to you each morning live by Gillette Labs for an effortless start to your day. And we'll continue our reaction to an amazing night for Irish football in Europe a bit later on in the programme. We're going to be joined by former St Pat's winger Conan Byrne, who was on commentary on LOI TV last night for their win against Mura. Up next, though, we are switching our attention to the Euro 22 final between England and Germany, and we'll be joined by the former Ireland manager Sue Ronan. Back in a moment.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB Sports, in association with Cabri FC, are returning with a monster football roadshow. Coming your way August 17th.
Football legends Michael Owen.
If you haven't got that attitude, then you'll never survive.
Ian Wright.
Lots to look forward to.
Emma Byrne.
That's normal, that's all in the game. The level is gone through the roof.
And Karen Carney will be our guests at Vicar Street
as they look back on their playing days and preview the new 2022-2023 season.
This is an exclusive off-air event, and tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to otbsports.com/events.
And remember that the ticket proceeds will go towards supporting Irish women's grassroots football.
T's and C's apply. See you on the night.
Oh, things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Yep, I think the debate around venues is likely to continue about Sligo Rovers against Viking in 2 weeks' time. Chris in contact on the YouTube live comments. Markovich Park over Dublin, if the pitch was fit for purpose. Bring these teams into Sligo and get our home advantage. Yeah, well, look, it's a huge opportunity for Sligo over these two legs to go one step closer to the Europa Conference League proper. And I'm sure the debates will go on about potential venues there. Delighted to say that we've got Sue Ronan with us now, the former Republic of Ireland manager, to look ahead to a sold-out Wembley this weekend, Sue, for what should be a really interesting final. A Germany team who I don't think too many people had down as potential winners here, but they're serial winners of this competition, and they're up against England, the hosts, who've been very impressive in their run to the final. A very interesting final ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the two best teams in the tournament have got to the final. I was probably one of those doubters about Germany before the tournament started. They've been, they haven't been the Germany we've known over the last couple of decades for the last 2 years, really. They've had a few dodgy results, even in the World Cup qualifying campaign. But once I saw them play, I was at their first game here in the group stages, and once I saw them play, I thought to myself, they're back to the Germany of old. I thought they were strong, they were physical, they were organised, they were skillful, they were clinical. And they've gone about their business like that. So from that moment on, I felt they'd be very hard to beat, and that's the way it's proven. On the other side, then you have England, obviously, and again, I felt that they would be one of the teams to beat in this tournament. I think momentum has been building in women's football here in England for a long time now. We've spoken about it before, the resources that has gone into the game. They've now got the best league in the world here for women. It's a professional league. Most of the top players are playing here. And just the momentum has been building. And then, of course, at home advantage, you can never bet against the hosts in any tournament. But I think they've proven they deserve to be in the final along with Germany on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, with the exception of probably having to eke out the results a bit against Spain in the quarter-final, England have swept their way very impressively to this final. They're scoring goals freely. We can talk about Betmead against Alex Pop in the race for the Golden Boot in a few moments, but like England haven't looked like they're conceding that many chances. And the Spain game aside, perhaps maybe the pressure of expectation of being the home team doesn't seem to have got to them. They've played some really nice football on the run to Wembley.
They really have. And the opening game, I guess, they looked a little bit nervous against Austria in a packed Old Trafford. Many of those girls probably had never played in front of a crowd like that, and of course the expectations of a host team and opening the tournament, and everyone thought maybe they won that game 1-0, and we were wondering were they at their best, but as it turned out, Austria were actually a very good team, and got to the quarterfinals themselves. But after that then, yes, they obliterated a much fancied Norwegian team. They got by the North pretty easily. And then they were tested, of course, against Spain in the quarterfinals. And for 80 minutes, they were under the cosh. They didn't really play well. But then the coach made a couple of tactical changes. And once they scored the first goal, there was no looking back. They were always going to win that game. And I think Spain showed a little bit of a soft centre that I've mentioned. They've been very good, and they are very good. They are missing two of their better players, of course, in this tournament. But they have all the skill in the world. They play lovely football, but unfortunately that doesn't always lead to the goals that they should be scoring. And when you don't score goals, you're not going to win games, But for me, England are looking very strong. They are starting games a little bit slowly, though. I was concerned again against Sweden the other night. I'm sure you saw it. Sweden could have been 2-0 up after 5 or 10 minutes. Mary Earps pulled off a great save. There was another opportunity, went a begging. So it's just taken them a little while to get into their stride. So I think if that happens on Sunday, they could be in trouble. But I still fancy them. I think with the momentum there, the home crowd, and of course the front players they have, I think they'll just about pip the Germans.
In Germany, they've had a fantastic season so far, a fantastic tournament. They've only conceded one goal all the way to the final. That's something that's really going to stand to them, and England are going to have to probably break down to be able to get in on goal.
Yeah, for sure. And that one goal was the other night against France, and it's really gone down as an OG now with the goalkeeper, because as you saw, it came off the upright and then back off her into the goal. So they've been very strong at the back. And again, when I go back to that first game, I saw them play against Denmark. That stood out for me really. I was really impressed with their back line, and particularly the number 5, Heggering. I think she's an outstanding centre half. She actually underhit a couple of passes the other night and maybe could have put her team in trouble, but I really do think the back four, the full backs are very good, 2 centre halves are very good. I think as a team they defend very, very well. And if you look at the game against France, the danger, the front three for the French were the danger players, and they're so pacey, the wingers, Deane and Cascarino, and they've been scoring goals for fun in other games. But if you look at the way Germany defended against them, it wasn't even just in the 1v1s. No player was left isolated. There was 2 and 3 players ganging up on those danger players for France every time they got the ball. So they defended really well as a team and snuffed out any danger. And that's going to be something that England is going to have to break down, obviously, if they're going to win this game.
Yeah, Germany press very effectively, Sue, and it doesn't seem to matter the type of opposition that they play. I saw their game against Austria and the France game, and in both cases, you say they hunt in packs, they will put pressure on from the front, and they make themselves incredibly difficult to play through.
Yeah, they absolutely smothered France the other night. As I said, those danger players in the wide areas, they weren't allowed to turn. They weren't allowed to get one-on-one with the fullbacks. The midfield player, there was always a midfield player coming over to support the fullback. The winger was there supporting, and they just hunted in packs, as you say, and smothered out that danger. And they put so much physically into that game in the first half the other night. I was actually concerned going into the second half that they mightn't have enough left in the tank, and especially the fact that France got that goal just before half time, and they were going to have that bit of momentum with them in the second half, because just before that, for 10 or 15 minutes before that, you could see that weakness in the French that I've spoken about before, that I also think is there. The Spanish, the heads were dropping, they were giving out to each other, there was misplaced passes, it looked like some players maybe weren't up for the challenge. So I thought the momentum might swing with the equaliser. But the Germans just continued to do in the second half what they were doing all first half, and they're physically very, very fit, and they press so well all over the pitch. That's really a big strength of theirs, and it's going to be difficult for England to break that down.
The Germany captain, Alex Popp, has spoken a few times in the tournament about how thankful she was that it went back by a year so that she was able to play. And she's spoken about how previously she was injured and missed major tournaments, and she's here to kind of make an impression and to make up maybe for lost time. She has been so clinical, and I was watching the Koi Gig pod, and Karen Duggan was making the point yesterday that one of the things England will have to deal with Popp is that she's got a very different kind of physical profile compared to some of the other attackers that England will have to defend against. We're talking about a player who is ravenous coming into the tournament, who will, again, as you mentioned, press along with her teammates, and who's been tremendously clinical in front of goal throughout the tournament too.
Yeah, Alexandra Popp's been around a long time, and when I was managing the under-19s, our under-19s back in up to 2010, she was an underage player. We came across her a few times as an underage player with Germany, and it was obvious the talent she had, and she brought something so different. Her physicality, she's a big presence on and off the pitch, and her ability, obviously. And for sure, this is something that England maybe haven't faced, and be a real test, particularly for Millie Bright. But you know, I'm so happy for Alexandra Popp. It's a great story. She's missed the last two European Championships through injury, the 2013, 2017 edition. The Germans won in 2013. They didn't in 2017, but she missed both of those. And as you say, she would have missed this tournament if it had been on last year. I think she only came back in April from injury. Didn't start the tournament. Schuller was in ahead of her, but got in and came on and scored. And then Schuller got COVID, and she stayed in ever since, and she scored in every game. And what goals she scored. I mean, her header the other night, the first goal was a fantastic goal, it really was, but I just thought her header was superb. You know, the movement, the power and the desire, and that's going to be something that England are really going to have to try and nullify, because she's such a powerful header of the ball, and she's probably one of the best in the women's game herself. I put her up there with Abby Wambach from the States, who was a fantastic header of a ball as well. You know, so that's going to be something that'll be, you know, I'm sure England are working on how to nullify that. But yeah, what a player and what a story for her. And you know, I do hope England win the tournament, but on the other hand, you're looking at Alexandra Popp, and you wouldn't begrudge her if Germany won it.
Yeah, absolutely not. And as you said, Sue, that power, how do you stop a player like that? It seems near impossible. Like, as you said, her two goals, it was impossible at times. She got her foot to it, but the power she got to it, even though she just barely could fully get her full foot to it in that first goal and the header, how do you nullify a player like that?
You have to try and cut out the surface, I guess, is the first part, you know, and then if you can't do that, because you're not going to do that all the time either, especially with Germany, like their wingers are so good and they're so fast, and you know, they hoot on one side and Brand on the other. And I'd say Boole might come back into the equation if she's recovered from COVID. That's the number 19 who played wide on the left. She again has been super for them, and they're the supply chain for Popp, you know. And Popp drops into midfield as well and sets up play. Like, she's a great hold up centre forward, but for those crosses coming out of the box, you have to double up on her. You have to try to disrupt her, put her off her rhythm. But she has such desire and, you know, power. And you can see the way she celebrates as well. Like, it means so much to her. It's just going to be very, very difficult. It really is.
So when it comes to the occasion, like, we've talked about records tumbling along the way, and you know, Camp Nou earlier this year, where we had a Clásico between Real Madrid and Barcelona, and the place is packed to the rafters. Wembley is going to be packed. There's been good attendances across this tournament. In many ways, England was probably the perfect place to host this, but it's going to be a very special occasion for Wembley this coming Sunday for this final.
Yeah, and that occasion could get to the English players, you know, because the expectation on them now is growing, the weight on their shoulders. I'm in London at the moment in my sister's, and she lives around the corner from where the team hotel is, and there's helicopters going over all the time, and they never see helicopters, you know. But yeah, the weight is growing, the weight of expectation is growing on the English team. As you said, the records have been, you know, breaking in every round. They're expecting over 80,000 on Sunday. There's a clamour for tickets. People are paying crazy money now for tickets, and I think it's going to break the record for European final, men and women. I think the highest record is 69,000 in the men's one some years ago. that could get to the players. I'm sure they've all the right people around them to try make sure it doesn't. But at the end of the day, we're only human. People are only human. Players are only human. And that's the piece that I worry about, because they have all the skill. England have. They have players that can come off the bench and change the game. You know, the players on the pitch that can change the game. They're going to have the crowd behind them, momentum behind them. You're just hoping that they start well and they don't let the occasion get to them, because, you know, as a player, there's nothing as bad as if you don't perform to the best of your ability on the pitch. You know, if you let the occasion get to you. So hopefully it doesn't, but what an occasion it's going to be. I think the Germans will relish that. They're used to playing in front of big crowds. That's not going to really faze them, I wouldn't think. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how England deal with that. Yeah,
remarkable to see 12 million Germans watch the game against France during the week as well, which is a huge TV audience. And I was even thinking for here, Sue, it's probably no great coincidence. Look, it was a killer that Ireland didn't get to go to a European Championships, which were on our doorstep, which would have been fantastic if they had got through against Ukraine and qualified. But the World Cup qualifier is very much on the horizon. I think it's no coincidence that Tallaght sold out really quickly this week for the upcoming World Cup qualifier against Finland. That's probably the knock-on effect of this. People are watching some good football on the TV right now, and there's a clamour for tickets here to watch Vera Pauw's side over the next while as well.
Yeah, and that's the knock-on effect, you know, and the coverage has been great on TV, and every one of the games have been on, and, you know, on regular TV. You haven't had to go on the internet to look for them as such, and, you know, the analysts have been great, and it's great to see our own players there analysing the game, you know, and they're the role models for the young kids. But yeah, that match, the game against Finland is sold out in 6 minutes or something. I think I went on about an hour later to get some tickets for my nieces and missed out, but you know, that the game is growing everywhere, and I think having the tournament so close to us in England, and, you know, I mean, even the men's side of the game, we always look to the men's game here, and we're big followers of it. And, you know, I think we're big followers of the women's game here in England as well. We know a lot of the players, our own players have played with many of them. They've been teammates, our teammates with them, you know, and I think it will have even a better knock-on effect if England win for us. I think it'll raise the profile, you know, of the game. And yeah, it's growing everywhere, and it's great. It's great to see. I think that's going to be the big legacy from this tournament, you know, those big attendances and new fans coming into the sport. And it's not just women and girls, it's men, it's families, it's older men, younger women, older women. And that's what you want to see. You know, it's football at the end of the day. And yeah, it's just great to see the interest there now. Yeah, no, the Prow's been really good at the Euros as well. You've mentioned that you want England to win on Sunday, but who are you expecting to win on Sunday? I'm going to stick with them now. I haven't gone against them yet, even though I was looking dodgy there against Spain. I'm going to say 2-1 England. Okay. I could go to extra time. I could go all the way. But I'm going to stick my neck out and say 2-1 England. Not sure the English would be able to take the excitement of penalties against Germany if it was to go that far, but we'll see how we go. I'm not sure they would, no. Sue, enjoy the occasion at Wembley. It's going to be a great one on Sunday afternoon. Will do. Thanks, lads. Many thanks there to former Republic of Ireland boss Sue Ronan. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs. It's an effortless finish to your day. We will be turning our attention next to Sunday's All-Ireland ladies football final between Meath and Kerry. We're going to be joined on the line next by Meath's Jenny Rispin. But first, it is time for the GAA Quick Picks All-Ireland final special.
Some of these critics, these pundits, I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable. I'd like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion. Now, the Quick Picks winners of the last 3 years are right here, you and I. Where's Adrian Barry? Not here. Well, Tommy Rooney, I don't know if I'm not a winner. Not yet. You're ahead of everybody. Unless something dramatic is going to happen. I don't know if the percentages. Here they are. Oh no, Tommy's gone level with you. 76. Oh wow. What? Okay, this is a lot closer than I thought it was. I thought you were a bit further ahead of Tommy. I've written Tommy off way too quickly. Owen and Adrian, look at how far they are behind us, though. I don't know how that works now. So last week I was in the lead, and me and Tommy had the same teams. And you both picked Kerry to win, right? Yeah. This is pretty questionable. Yeah, so we need to look into that. Yeah. We need an independent observer to look at these stats at the end of this. But Colin, our producer, is just throwing his hands up to heaven and saying, look, these are the stats. This is what I think it's mainly been Cameron who's been watching them over the last while. I much prefer when there wasn't actually a table. But okay. Hey, we still got what did you do then? I don't know. Look,
We just kind of went, oh yeah, our predictions weren't great last week.
We don't
and then
know
it
who
was us off. Yeah. I kind of like that. We go, no, we're all doing really well. I think, look, a 76%, and in my case was that 72% hit rate's not bad.
Not bad. And you won it last year.
I did the last 2 years.
Did you get anything for it, Will?
No.
Stop.
I got to do a video back to Adrian because I was away, I think, at the time, and the volume was down on the video on YouTube. So that's how much celebration I got to have.
Lovely.
I think people heard it on OTB Sports Radio. So if people are listening in that way this morning, you're guaranteed to hear everything. But unfortunately for the YouTube, the volume was down when I was giving my address.
That wasn't Adrian doing that on purpose, do you know?
Yeah, I got a promotion apparently as well, according to Colin.
Oh right, okay, good stuff. Yeah, I think you should absolutely have a little medal at least. Trophy. Yeah, maybe we'll bring that in.
Gold, silver and bronze. Because we only at this stage, I think, given that we're this week only doing the senior ladies football final, we'll probably do the senior camogie final for next week. So we've only got 2 games left. So given that you and I almost certainly have had the same pick this week, you or Tommy are going to win.
Yeah, well, we're still going to look into that now. I'm not fully sure that is the exact result. We'll look at the calculations.
Let's have a look at the graphic then and see who everyone has picked, because Tommy, Adrian and Owen are all in abstention. Look at Owen going for pride here and going for Kerry, just to create the Meath flag in the middle of the predictions too.
Exactly.
With one piece of yellow through the green. Right, tell me why Meath are going to win, Ash, before we can consider how Kerry could win.
I think it's going to be a really close game, and the reason that I'd say that Meath might be able to push on is because they did it in game after game against Galway. In the last kick of the game, Emma Duggan stood up. They know how to do it in those crucial moments, in the dying minutes. So if it comes down to that, which I think it might go the whole way to the wire and it might come down to the last few minutes, then I would be backing Meath to be able to push on, because they've been in that situation time and time again. So for me, that's where I see it being won and lost. Now, who knows? Like if Kerry can break down their defensive structure, if they can get in on goal, they're well able to score goals. They did it against Mayo, but it was very easy against Mayo to get those goals. I felt, that at times it looked like they were going to score goals again and again. They were just really walking through that defence. And look, I spoke with some of the Mayo management and stuff after the team, and they said that's how it felt to them. It wasn't a great performance by them, especially in that first half. Much better in the second half. But they're dangerous going forward, but I don't think they're going to have as much freedom against Meath. So for me, just about, I would say Meath will edge it. But yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, look, I take Noel Healy's point from yesterday's OTB AM that this Kerry team, many of them have been around for a while. They've still got players who were there a decade ago and they were last in the final, and they are backboning that team. You had your video, Ash, which went viral with Louise Galvin, who's come back in to bolster her panel this year only a few months after she's given birth. And these are, a help for Kerry. I thought Kerry played pretty well against Mayo. Watched the game in the telly a couple of weeks ago when the doubleheader was on. But I was a bit like you, maybe a bit more impressed by what Meath had to do. They were up against a Donegal team who put a full lockdown on Dublin in the round before. It was looking a little bit ropey for Meath at different times in trying to break them down. And then Meath still had the X factor. In that case, it was Emma Duggan just scoring remarkable points. And when you've got talents like that, and you've got Vicky Wall, maybe you've got Stacey Keogh, these type of players who can make a difference up front, I think if there are difficult questions posed of Meath in this final this weekend, I'm sure you're going to agree with everything I've just said, I think they can find the answers.
Yeah, and things have happened throughout the games. They've got sin bins. They had a yellow card for Vicky, for Moira. They had that in the Leinster final against Dublin as well. I know they didn't come out on top that day, but they don't seem to panic. And that is a massive thing with this team, that when it comes right down to the last minute, dying minutes, to get over the line, they don't panic and they're able to push on. So for me, that's where it'll come down to. It's All-Ireland final day. Hopefully we'll have a big crowd in Croke Park. It's a massive occasion for both teams. Really massive now for Kerry, that they haven't been there in so long. As you mentioned, Louise Galvin, Louise Nimmer-Hurtig, these players that have been there time and time again, this is their chance, and they're going to look at it like that. This is their chance. These days don't come around too often, so they're not going to let it pass them by too easy, that's for sure. And I'm sure their management are going to have their homework done on me. They know exactly how they play, but hopefully they stick to their way of playing and they don't change it up completely to try and play against Meath in a way to stop them. I think it's going to be more play your own style, trust the process, trust why you've got here in the first place, because they do play a great brand. But yeah, they're a great team. They're a great side, and you couldn't write them off well. You really couldn't.
Yeah, I'm hugely looking forward, by the way, to the intermediate final, which is the All-Leinster affair between Wexford and Laois. These two teams played an absolute cracker in Portlaoise earlier this year in the Leinster semi-final. Laois were up by double digits in the game, and Wexford somehow fought back, and in the 6 minute of injury time they equalised, sent it to extra time, won in extra time. You would have thought maybe that would have had some psychological scarring for Laois, but the last day out Laois played against Clare in Roscommon in Kiltoom and managed to win after extra time in the heat. Moan scored 114, 110 of it from play, which is just absolutely incredible. Incredible story about Moan. Last time that Laois played in the final was the senior decider in 2001. Guess who was the mascot for Laois on the day?
Yes, it was her.
Moan and her best memory was getting a cooked breakfast on the way to the game, which was her award for being the mascot for the Laois team, and this time she goes out to lead them out basically as their main player in the final against Wexford. So the intermediate final
lovely. That's really
it's a magic story.
Yeah.
I think during the middle of the pandemic it was the 20th anniversary, and there were photos of Mo who was basically there with all the players and effectively being brought around before the game, and they were all keeping an eye on her. And then there's still some of the players that have just retired in the last year or two that were there on the day too, so she's still that link back to their team in 2001. But Wexford, a bit like Meath, got to the final, lost the final. They'll now look to win an intermediate final, and we'll see how they kick on after that. Delighted to say that we've got Meath legend, former dual player Jenny Rispin with us as well. Jenny, how are you getting on this morning?
Morning, folks. All good, thank you.
Give me a reason then. You can play devil's advocate for us here. Why Meath should be worried about Kerry this coming Sunday?
Yeah, look, first of all, I think everyone seems to be back in Meath at the moment, so Kerry would only be delighted with that. But yeah, look, Kerry have got where they are. It's great to see, again, a new team coming into the All-Ireland final again. You know, it's only healthy for the game, and it's only fantastic and creating a great buzz again within the LGFA championships. So Ashton covered a lot of the reasons there why Meath would possibly win, and Kerry have reasons to be optimistic as well. But so they're well-hardened, well-battled team. So these teams, they're getting familiar with each other. I know last year's league campaign, I think Kerry beat Meath in the round game. And obviously then, Meath overturned them in the final in a completely different game. And it was probably a game where Meath really announced themselves as a force to be reckoned with. But, so Kerry, they haven't gone away. They've continued to build. So I think they have the ability within their team to cause Meath serious problems this weekend. And I'd probably look, you're looking at you're talking about the goal getters at one end, but I would actually say from further out the field, they have players that really kind of attack Meath from deep and from wide areas. You look at that even the last day, who was getting the scores from their half back line in particular. And looking at Meath this year, it's probably from those areas that have caused them the most trouble. And I would say even the last day, those late runs, bursting runs through the defence, those gaps there to be found in that Meath defence when you move the ball quick enough. And even against Galway, they were trying to find space in the back door as well. So look, plenty of reasons for Kerry to be optimistic as well. I think it can only create a great atmosphere, a great game, and a great prospect, I think.
Yeah, because when you look at the style of the two teams, they both like to be defensively solid at the start, but they're both really good on the break, which was really clear in the two semi-finals. So we could well have a very good attack and counter-attack affair on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so that is the key. It's on the counter-attack. Which defence can organise itself quickly enough? And Meath are probably used to that. So there's a lot thrown at them the last couple of years, and they've shown the answers. But yeah, I think it will be said if Kerry can catch Meath on the break quick enough, because Meath they will attack in droves, they will attack in numbers, but they obviously come back in just as many numbers as well. So if Kerry can attack them quick enough, and they will, so they've great speed there. And Niamh Carmody especially on the half forward line, showing real industrial kind of vision going forward. And making things happen. So it's not the usual suspects. Like we talk about Louise Murray and how deadly she is, and she will be. But I'd say it'll be further out the field where Kerry will find joy. And as I say, it's that counter-attacking style. Meath will, so they will hold it tight. Probably for the start of the game, they tend to. I don't know. They always like to have us on the edge of the seat and a half-time questioning, God, what is this going to be the day? And this, 10-15 minute spell after half-time, they just seem to turn it on. push up on the kickouts and really kind of put, any team that's against them, put their backs to the wall, and that's really where they seem to win every game.
Yeah, it's going to be a change for Meath with players going to Australia for next year, and unfortunately for those who are losing players to Australia now, it's a bigger impact than it was previously because of the length of the AFLW season. But I just think it's remarkable how Meath have come up the ranks, because I remember watching them in Division 3 of the Ladies National Football League not that long ago. And here they are now, having used the league in many ways going into Division 2 as a platform for championship, and then working their way through the intermediate and becoming the best senior team in the country. It wasn't an overnight story, it was very gradual. But what a 5 or 6 years, Jenny, now as a Meath supporter, this team have given you.
Yeah, it has. It has been incredible. You don't want to take any bit of it for granted. Anyone that remembers, gone back years, and look, there's been good days before that as well, but nothing compared to now. But if you're there, if you're a supporter during those times, you will want to lap these days up, because absolutely anything can happen. Things can turn around and things can change. You just want to enjoy every bit of it. I have to credit, the management team that have come in, taken things by the horns, and driven this Meath team on to show the potential that has been there. So that there's been plenty of promise in the past. I know it's been spoken about, but it just shows the importance that, look, we see the skill level raising in the game now, which is so important. Girls are starting a lot younger, there's a lot more time coaching put into it, and now we can see the tactical side of it really kind of taking hold as well. So it's a team kind of that have a really grasp on the tactical side of it that are proven successful. So it's wonderful to be to watch it happen, to be part of it. I certainly haven't made it easy or easy on the heart, but it's going back. I don't know if it's a turning point or it has been gradual. Like, it was a couple of years there in Division 3. You can see they were just trying to build a process. And I look at Wexford even playing in the intermediate final. I know a few years ago Meath lost to Wexford, I think, in the Leinster Championship. And there was a lot of stumbling blocks on the way for Meath. They had to kind of go back and readdress things. And even last year, the league coming up to Division 2, losing to Kerry, but so just whatever clicked last year, they got it right. There's what they've been working on. I sit here today, actually, only a few yards from Dunganny pitch, and there's plenty of hours put in there, where it's really kind of brought us to this point.
And Jenny, you're being very modest, because there was plenty of hours put in by you too. Bringing it back to, say, 2015, you were a player manager that year. You stepped in. Obviously, prior to that, you're playing for Meath of 14, 15 years, and I think it was 2016 was your last year. But stepping in 2015 when things were not in the best state in Meath football, can you bring us back there?
I'm trying to forget about it, actually. For me that year it was tough. I kind of struggled to get back fitness with a couple of injuries, and just the way the year panned out, I kind of had to take a bit of a break to kind of get myself fit again. And I got a phone call from the county board to see, look, what I see it out to the end of the year. Things happening, going well. There's a lot of players coming and going, and look, every team goes through a transition, and that can happen. I can never say no too easily to when Meath come knocking. So things couldn't have gone probably any worse for us at that time when I did step in. I think even it was actually this time of the year, it was the bank holiday weekend actually, that we were drawn to play Cork of all teams. I went down to watch Kerry. It could have been Kerry or Cork, and Cork actually lost that game. They lost to Kerry that year in the Munster Championship. And you're talking about a team kind of wounded, coming back to bite us, and a lot of people have been spoken about that game against Cork, and it's days like those that build resilience, I believe, in players. A lot of the current crop were playing that time, and can't have been easy for them. A lot of them were young players, and it would have been hard, but they responded absolutely fantastic. And so they always believed that there was something there with the Meath. I remember having conversations with even on the pitch after a couple of the games, and it was Vicky Wall was only a young player, even Cleary, but they truly believed themselves that, look, we can get this together, and we're not that far away if we can organise ourselves and if we put in the effort. So You know, that's what it's really stemmed from. And tough days like that, you know, it's just as important as winning.
Not to take away from the occasion of the final at all, but just something that we've been debating over the last week or so in the office, particularly after the Camogie semi-finals from last weekend, where there was 3,500 at the two senior games. In a way, have the Camogie Association and the LGFA maybe missed a trick here, Jenny, when you consider that the inter-county men's season is now done and dusted for this year, and August is almost like a fallow month for Croke Park, that maybe the Camogie Association and the ladies' football might be better off starting a few weeks later and actually having the full profile of the month of August available for their knockout games?
Yeah, possibly. Look, I can see a point in that you know, there's been a lot of talk, and even this week in Meath as well, with a new manager, and you know, that there's a lot of talking on around different things, and you know, yeah, you kind of forget, you know, there's an All-Ireland final coming up in a few weeks. Look, I'll put it on the other foot though. You know, from the club point of view, where that fits in terms of the whole schedule. So, you know, so it's quite difficult. Like, as a club, we haven't had our county players so far this year. And, you know, if you were to push on and get a bit further, yeah, okay, maybe a few more weeks mightn't do it any harm. But, you know, there's also an eagerness to get back to club championship and have that started. But, yeah, look, anything that can grow the game. Look, all we want is, you know, in the ladies' football is to be taken seriously and to get that profile up, and you know, to have people caring and you know, looking out for it. But you know, so look, there's always going to be something else in the calendar, you find. But maybe, you know, so maybe going forward that they could look at it in a few weeks, tightening up the schedule and having your big showpiece games, you know, stand alone, and you know, being even the main centre of attention of the media. And
give us a prediction, Meath or Kerry, who's going to win on Sunday?
Meath, of course. I said at the start of the year, I can't see this Meath team being beaten. You know, whatever's been thrown at them, you know, and the beautiful thing is, you know, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, you know, so you'll have sin bins, which could play a part again on Sunday. You know, things happen in a game, players get injured, but they've just been rock solid the whole way through. You know, they're not going to concede a whole lot. You know, Kerry, you know, might rely on their goals the last few games. Meath they've conceded maybe one or two the whole championship. You know, they haven't been out-goaled, I think, in any team apart from the last game. It's just hard to see a team outscore them at this stage, and I say if those players that just step up in those, you know, it's all just been a game or, you know, a season of moments for Meath. The last couple of years, you know, it's just like if you can hold strong for as long as possible, this Meath team have been doing it. But you know, to have the players to just step up and make things happen, you know, just in an instant, and they can really suck the life out of other teams. And look, I don't see Sunday being any different. It's not to say that Kerry, you know, will come up and put in a great fight, but I can't see Meath being beaten.
Jenny, enjoy the game on Sunday. Thanks a million for joining us on OTB AM.
Thank you very much. That's again.
And OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Ash has been talking about something else beautiful, which is the new Celtic jersey. As a Celtic fan, let's have a look. This is a away kit, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mentioned this yesterday to Colin, our producer. I asked him, actually, we were having a call just about the show, and I said, have you seen the new Celtic away top? And he's like, no, send us a link there. So the link didn't load for ages, and eventually it did, and his reaction was, whoa.
It reminds me of one of the 90s Celtic kits that
was my favourite top. Yeah, it was. So it's just a modern version of that, but it's pretty nice. What do you think, Will?
No, it's lovely, yeah. Green, black pinstripes, pretty nice.
And in person it's so much better as well. So yeah, I'd love to see what people think, because I think it has to be up there for one of the nicest tops.
Yeah, throw us a comment.
This year, or
throw us a comment to the live stream. Yes or no? Do you like this new Celtic top? I think it's very nice. Indeed.
Mine is ordered. It's on the way.
Yeah, I had a feeling this was going to be on the gift list probably. Because the thing with Celtic as well is because their colours and because their kits are so synonymous. I remember one year when the hoops were broken and people complained, it was like, you cannot break the hoops on a Celtic jersey. It's very difficult to actually get a design that looks a little bit different but also nice. So the away kits tend to be a little bit more imaginative. Like Celtic have had some highlighter kits. They've had all sorts of mad away kits.
Exactly, are nice. So that brighter green, that's been lovely as well. Personally for me, I like the black. I love the black. Always have. Any black top in any jersey, I'm always drawn towards that. But yeah, in particular this one, and as you said, the older one, the more retro one. I just recently got a new one of them off a retro site as well. So I love it. But this one has to be up there for me. Do you have a favourite jersey, Will?
No, I'm not as much of a connoisseur as some of the people around here. Richie McCormick, Colin Boog are definitely the two people when it comes to jerseys. Colin has even been getting some cred from clubs in Cork because he's been wearing their kits over the last few days. So yeah, I think there probably will be a debate at some point about, you know, localised kits and what's the nicest local kit that's around. And if you watch Richie whenever he's here, he will generally have an obscure Brazilian second division team or something along those lines. A retro jersey from a team who were behind the Iron Curtain, possibly. So generally, you know, he likes to mix it up a little bit. I've never been a huge jersey man, but I do appreciate when they're nice, and I think that Celtic jersey looks really smart. By all means, disagree with us in the live comments on the YouTube if you don't particularly like it. But how do you reckon Celtic are going on this season, by the way?
Looking forward to it. It's really exciting. Some nice signings in there. Jota is locked down, which is what we wanted. So that's great to see. And yeah, just want to see them push on now. Obviously, Champions League. That's really exciting times. You know, it's been a while since Celtic have been there. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. And yeah, Ange has done a great job since he's came in. You know, a real likeable fella, and I think the job that he's done, it's been brilliant. The signings have been great. Kyogo, we didn't probably get to see a lot of him in the later half of the season. Yeah. So even like when you look at that, Hatate in the middle, like all of these players that really haven't fully got to express themselves fully within this team, and yeah, we've seen moments of them, but not fully got going. So yeah, it's exciting to see how they do. But hopefully, yeah, we have a great season ahead. I'm looking forard to it. Will.
Colin has just been in my ear. I think it's Satellite FC or the team in Cork, Cunnane. Satellite Taxis FC are the team to catch up. They were in the YouTube comments yesterday. You know, quite thankful for the fact that Colin was giving them a shout out. So if you're keeping an eye on Satellite Taxis FC, Colin Boog is your man. He is the hype man that Cork team need. Now, St. Pat's provided heroics in Europe last night by beating the Slovenian side Mura, who beat Spurs in the group stages of the Conference League last year. They won on penalties in Slovenia. It was a remarkable finish to the game. Delighted to say we're joined now by former Pats winger Conan Byrne, who was on commentary alongside Oisín Langan on LOI TV as well. Conan, how are you getting on this morning?
Not too bad, Will. How are you yourself and Aisling doing?
Yeah, look, we're great because, I mean, it's been a morning to celebrate what's happened in the League of Ireland this week. We were talking to the boys from Sligo earlier. The Pats lads are on their way back. We believe they're on a train at the moment to Vienna, so tricky enough trip back from Slovenia, but they won't mind that too much after what was a remarkably dramatic way to win in the end, and a fantastic performance by their on loan goalkeeper as well.
Yeah, it was just a crazy game. I think a lot of people expected them not to do as well as they did, especially not to go through anyway. But after the first leg, there was a lot of hope and expectation within the group itself that they could go over to Slovenia and put on a good performance. And they did that in spades. They were absolutely superb from minute 1 to minute 121. As you mentioned, Cunnane in goal was fabulous. He made 3 or 4 world-class saves, in particular in extra time from a shot from Michael Klepak on the edge of the box. I don't know how he got to it. A remarkable save. It reminded me of Gavin Bazzunu's save against Portugal from outside the box that time. But it was just, as I said, from every player on the pitch, even the substitutes that came on, it was just a remarkable performance. And Tim Clancy and the backroom team would be very proud of each and every one of its players.
Yeah, like plenty of nervy moments. I think back even to the 25th minute, the first of those really good saves. Daku gets in behind. Pats don't hold the line particularly well. And then again, it's just like a point blank save, which probably should have been scored, but a remarkably good save.
Yeah, obviously Daku, given his experience at Kosovo International, you're expecting him 1v1 to slot it home. But Cunnane stayed big and got a great right hand to it. But just before that, Will, Barry Cotter had a wonderful chance to put Pats into the lead from a corner kick. Joe Redmond got a touch on it, and he was 3 yards out. It was harder to miss, and he skied it over the bar with his head when he was easier to score. So, yeah, I think Pats created the more dangerous chances. However, Joe Cunnane, the on-loan goalkeeper from West Ham United, he definitely earned his wages this week.
Yeah, Pats carried a threat. Like, there was a ball that flashed across goal, which Owen Doyle nearly got to as well. It wasn't like Pats didn't fashion plenty of chances in Slovenia last night.
Absolutely not. And they created a lot of chances themselves in Dublin the previous week. And I think we've got to remember Mura hadn't conceded or had conceded a goal in every game over the last 15. It's the first time they haven't conceded a goal in the game was last night. And funnily enough, they got knocked out for it. But yeah, they created chances. You mentioned Serge Atakai there. He came off the bench. He just come in from the Finnish league where the assistant manager, Jonathan Daly, has been working over the last number of years. So they brought him in. He came off the bench. His decision-making wasn't great on the night, if I'm being completely brutally honest about it. He got into very dangerous positions, and final ball and final strike weren't what they should be at that level. But having said that, he got into the areas and he probably should have squared the chance you're talking about. He had a great opportunity just to square the ball to Owen Doyle for a simple tap-in. He went for goal and it just went wide. But as I said, against a team that were in the Europa Conference League last year, coming up beating Spurs, everybody was expecting them, and probably themselves as well, were expecting them to go through. And Pat showed that with a bit of heart, a bit of determination, a bit of luck as well, that things can go the Irish way as well.
Yeah, because I think that was very much the feeling coming out of the first leg at Richmond a couple of weeks ago, was that, you know, Chris Forrester's goal had given Pats genuine hope that they could go to Slovenia and potentially get a result. But most people, I think, would have expected it was going to be a difficult night for Pats. Like, this is coming up against a team with reasonable, as you say, recent European pedigree as well, and knocking them out.
Absolutely. I know they made a couple of new signings. They lost a couple of players due to the fact that they did so well in Europe. But Tim Clancy mentioned last week at post-match that it was as if they didn't respect St. Pat's last week. And again, last night, you wouldn't, the first half, you wouldn't have known who was playing Europa Conference League football last season. Pats put it up to them. They were really good, strong defensively. I think captain on the night, Joe Redmond, was absolutely superb. The youngest captain ever to captain in Pats in Europe, led by example. Tom Gravozzi and Harry Brockbank, either side of him. Harry is just brought in from USL in America. He spent time at Bolton Wanderers. His first taste of European football. And most of these players, I think it was 8 players last week, made their European debut out of the 11 that started. And shows the lack of experience. They've played a new formation now as well. They've played with wing backs and a box in midfield, which Tim Clancy hadn't used all season. So even Tim deserves huge credit with the risks that he made in this game over the course of the 2 legs. And they fully deserve their win over the course of the two games.
The penalties couldn't have been any more nervy. For anyone who didn't see it, 2 penalties each are missed within the 5. Redmond then puts away his penalty, and it's all set up then for potentially continuing on the sudden death. And the Muir penalty taker skies it over the crossbar. Pats go through, huge relief. To have to commentate on that, as a former Pats player, can't have been easy last night.
No, and you're doing it from, obviously we weren't in Slovenia as well, so it was difficult to kind of grasp the atmosphere at the ground when you're actually not there yourself. But yeah, I was very confident with the penalties that that St. Pat's were going to take. The Pats over the years have a very good record. I remember playing in the League Cup competition in 2015, and we won the penalty shootouts in quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals. Obviously, Pats won the FAI Cup last year against Bohemians on penalties as well. And although this was the first taste of penalties in Europe for Pats, I still had great faith in the players that were going to come up. I selected 4 out of the 5 pre-penalty shootouts, so I was close to getting the 5 right that Tim had selected. But yeah, just wonderful penalties. And as I said, with the Mura ones, player who missed Ty Sipo and skied it over the bar. But he's probably the unfortunate one, because 3 or 4 before him had very, very close to going over the bar as well. Very surprisingly, all the Mura spot kicks went high into the goal, and something that you wouldn't usually see in a penalty shootout, because you're taking a huge risk letting the ball come off the ground. But St. Pat's did the job, and Joe and I made some crucial saves, as I said, in the game itself, but also importantly in the penalty shootout. And
to do it away from home, to go to penalties, win it that way, it obviously gives you a hell of a lot of confidence now going into the next round.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't, again, you're just going to make that step up against CSKA Sofia with vast experience, international experience, South American players that are fantastic. Busado, Garchez, 2 Brazilians that are going to be the talking points possibly. You have Domov as well. He's a Bulgarian international. So creative midfielder. So yeah, you're going to be coming up against a more superior team to Mura. But as you say, Aisling, it's all about confidence going into these games, and they'll be completely full of it. Now, they do have an FAI Cup game against Waterford on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see what team selection Tim picks for that game. But these players have earned the right to play in this game against CSKA Sofia, and they're so young. The likes of Adam O'Reilly, 21 years of age, on loan from Preston, who was magnificent yesterday in the centre of the park. Over the 2 games, he was brilliant. You have Chris Forrester, who can do anything with a football. The technique that he shows in parts of the pitch where you're nearly afraid to receive the ball, he's exceptional. And then you have 34-year-old Owen Doyle up front, who's come home from England to experience European football again, and his selfless running and movement was something to behold last night as well. So they've nothing to fear. They've absolutely nothing to fear, nothing to prove either. They'll be the complete underdogs in this game, but they have earned the right now, and hopefully they can do themselves justice.
Yeah, players like Owen Doyle are so important. We were talking about Aidan Keane coming back to Sligo a little bit earlier on the programme, that they bring that experience of playing at a reasonably high level and then come back in. And I remember Owen Doyle was sitting here in studio with us on a Saturday here in OTB at the start of the season, and we're asking him about, coming back, having had a good few years in the lower leagues in England recently, and the fact that he had other options but decided to come to St. Pat's. And he was talking about Europe being a key reason why he signed for the club. I mean, obviously domestically you want to do well, and Pats won't want to surrender the FAI Cup this weekend and will want to do well in the league. But for attracting players in, a good run in Europe, quite aside from the financial benefits, is huge for a club.
Absolutely massive. And you mentioned Owen Doyle there, and sometimes players that come back from England at his age will get a reputation of just finishing off your career and not in it, or you're just in it just to kind of top up your money before the end of your career. But that's far from what Owen Doyle has done. He could have signed a big deal at Shamrock Rovers as well, turned that down. He worked with Tim Clancy when the both of them played at Hibernian, and they have a wonderful relationship both on and off the pitch. So he signed for the right reasons. As he said, European football is huge. He hadn't experienced it in over a decade since he's been with Sligo Rovers as well. So for him to come back, play in Inchicore, and he's certainly a fan favourite already. He's already scored 10 league goals this season. He'll probably admit himself he probably should have more. But a brilliant player to have around the dressing room, and he's full of positivity with those young players, and it's needed because there is a lack of experience in the squad as well.
Yeah, it's a good response from Pats too, when you consider being rocked after the cup final. Steve O'Donnell goes to Dundalk. It brings Robbie Benson with him, one of Pat's most important players. Okay, Pats were able to hold on to some of the really important ones like Chris Forrester to be around the squad, but Pats had to rebuild on the back of success, which is never the easiest thing to do. You're on the high of having had a good season, and next thing, your coach and one of your best players is ripped away.
Your coach, your best players, your assistant manager, and 2 or 3 more players as well, John Mountney, Sam Bone, just to name a few as well. So they were ripped apart. And it's crazy when you look at last night's performance, because there was only 2 players that started last night that started the cup final a little over 8 months ago. So it just goes to show the job that Tim Clancy has done, and they hired him very, very quickly. They knew Gareth Kelleher, the owner of St. Pat's, he knew who he wanted, went after him in the right way, you could say, and got his man. They started okay, and then they kind of dipped a little bit in league form, but the European spell now has just shown what this squad is capable of. And as I said, the recruitment has been key, because they lost, as you say, so many good players, good influential, experienced players, and holding on to Chris Forrester was key. But the likes of Owen Doyle coming in, bringing in Adam O'Reilly, like I mentioned, Barry Cotter was a wonderful signing on loan from Shamrock Rovers for the European campaign. But I think with Yaros in goal last season, everybody was saying that you cannot replace him when he went back to Liverpool. But they brought in Joseph Anang, and a lot of Pats fans are saying that he's even better than Miroslav Yaros. So it's that's a huge compliment to Joseph Anang, but he's been absolutely superb.
Yeah, it's exciting times, and these European nights, like it's what the players play for. It's such a buzz, and you can feel around the League of Ireland as a whole now that it's great. It's such a buzz around it.
Absolutely, Aisling, and the nerd that's in me, like I'm thinking about the coefficient, obviously as well, when it's increasing, when you have 3 fantastic victories during the week, which is great for Irish football. You have Shamrock Rovers, who had a magnificent result against Ludogorets, albeit they went out. It's just unfortunate the way their first leg had gone. And then Sligo Rovers' wonderful performance, both home and away, to Motherwell. And then obviously St. Pat's beating Murray yesterday. It's just so good to see 3 SSE or Tricity League teams still in Europe going into August. It's something that we don't see regularly enough. Hopefully Shamrock Rovers can push on and get to a group stages. If I'm being honest, I think it's beyond Sligo and St. Pat's, given the opposition that they're going to be facing over the next couple of weeks. But having said that, these guys have nothing to fear now. They've showed what they can do. They've earned a lot of money for it, and best of luck to them now in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think I saw in the coefficients there's 2 countries outside the top 30 in Europe who've got multiple teams left in Europe at this stage, Malta and the Republic of Ireland. So just goes to show the achievement. I think the coefficient is going inside the top 40 based on the results from last night, and also Shamrock Rovers getting a positive result against Ludogorets too. That's the thing as well, Conan. We were saying this to some of the Sligo guys earlier. Particularly, I think the League of Ireland gets in behind teams and even rival clubs when they have a run in Europe, and this week has been a bit of a shot in the arm for the league getting such great results.
Absolutely, yeah. We saw it last year when Bohs went on their run, and their support that they received when they were playing at the Aviva Stadium, getting 30,000 plus fans going in there, and it was wonderful to see. And now, as a former professional footballer of only just a few years, you just get so jealous of these occasions now when the teams are doing so well. Because when I was playing, they weren't doing as good, but my teams weren't doing as good. But but as I said, with Shamrock Rovers, I think that the squad that they have, the depth of the squad that they have a real chance of going forward. Obviously, they brought in Daniel Cleary from St. Johnstone. Simon Power has come in as well from Harrogate Town in League 2, formerly of Norwich. Played in the league with UCD and Cabinteely before he went away. So they've strengthened as well, which they needed to. I still do think that they need a striker that can score 20 plus goals per a season. But with Sligo Rovers as well, I'm just so impressed with John Russell since he's come in, Will, if I'm being completely honest. And even with his team selections, leaving off 2 international players in Nando Peinecker and Frank Levac, and not replacing them, but Shane Blaney, or Blaney Shane, whatever way you want to say it. What a wonderful free kick in the first couple of minutes to settle the nerves, and very complete performance from them. Gave Motherwell no opportunity to score. And then obviously with St. Pat's as well. As I said, I think recruitment has been key with the 3 teams over the last number of months, and it just goes to show what good recruitment can do, signing the right players and signing the right personalities.
Well, look, I'm sure it was enjoyable doing the game from Tube last night, but hopefully you and Oisin Langan can be flown out to Sofia for the first leg of this third round qualifier. Conan, thanks for being so good with your time this morning.
No problem at all, Will. Thanks.
OTB AM is brought to you live each morning with thanks to Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what we've got coming up on OTB Sports Radio for the rest of the day. 1 o'clock, some OTB Gold with Jason Sherlock, potentially the next manager of Monaghan. We've got Friday Night Racing live at 3 p.m. Coigig Euros final preview is coming up at 4. Kathleen McNamee and Karen Duggan looking forward to the final between Germany and England. And a piece of OTB Gold at 6 p.m. is going to be the great Ronnie Delaney. You can follow Off the Ball across all of our social channels, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be sure to download the OTB Sports app for the latest and best sports content and analysis. Now, after the break, the Irish Independent's football correspondent Dan McDonnell is going to be with us to look back on that fantastic night for Irish football. But first, here is the Mullingar maestro himself, Sligo Rovers' Aidan Keane, who spoke to our own Alanna Cunnane after that famous win last night.
Aidan, a massive result there for Sligo Rovers. What's your reaction, first of all?
Yeah, we're all delighted. Unbelievable night for the club and all the fans. You know, they've been supporting us well over the little European run, and so delighted to get that for them tonight.
And Aidan Keane putting on a show was running out multiple times here throughout the night. What does that kind of mean to you? And as you say, the support of all the fans continued throughout the campaign and the league too.
Yeah, brilliant. Happy that the catchy songs about me, yeah, because everyone has been whistling it and humming it around for a few days, so yeah, delighted.
And obviously it was a great team performance overall as well. You know, you guys got the goals, but as well you held out defensively as well when you could. What does that kind of mean progressing now forward? As you say, you're going on now, you'll have to head to Norway. What does that all mean in the build-up?
Not much is behind us now. We're delighted that the sort of attitude everyone took towards the game, because we knew how good we could be, and we're delighted that our game plan worked against them, but we're not really worrying about Viking at the minute. We've got a big game on Sunday, in the cup against Wexford, so worry about that first.
And John himself has a lot of experience at this level and the European level overall. Is there any words of wisdom he kind of gave to you before the game to settle the nerves or something a bit?
Yeah, the two of them are so well drilled and they have us, our game plan all well drilled into us, so that's all they worry about. None of the noise outside of it, just worry about us and our game plan and putting it on the pitch, and we've done that.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks very much.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This summer, we're bringing you double Koi gig.
It just shows the development of the WSL and all the money that they've put in is really, really worth it. Let's get to the Russo goal straight away. Like a back heel nutmeg. Like it was, for me, it was one of the moments of the tournament.
For the best insight and analysis from this summer's Euros, subscribe to the Koi Gig pod on the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
And don't forget, if you want to watch back any of our content talking about Sligo Rovers and St Pat's wins in Europe last night, you can do so on demand on the Off the Ball YouTube page in a little bit. Now, Dan McDonnell joins us. I'm going to read out Dan's tweet from full time, which is a bit sobering and put everything into context afterwards. Great night for the League of Ireland clubs. The wins should be used as ammunition for improvement. Thoughts immediately now turn to whether there'll be suitable stadiums for the third round. New generation of players and managers deserve better. Dan is with us now. Dan, how are you getting on this morning?
Morning, how are things?
It is an obvious question. I mean, we've been chatting to the Sligo lads about it all morning. They would love the game to be at the showgrounds, but realistically, it's going to be incredibly difficult to do so. In all likelihood, they're probably going to have to go to Dublin because the club had already gone to speak to UEFA. We're told the temporary seating couldn't go in, so it makes it very difficult to meet the requirements to be able to host Viking in a couple of weeks' time. That's for the clubs logistically to work out over the next couple of weeks, but having to give away home advantage would be quite a disappointment for Sligo particularly.
Yeah, and like this is the point. I mean, there's obviously great sort of euphoria with the results last night, but I sort of remember maybe a decade ago or so, St Pat's getting through a couple of rounds and having to move to Tala, and like this has happened in a couple of instances in our time. Obviously, the Dundalk games I think you referenced earlier, and it's a consistent issue here, and I think. Sometimes it's obviously a constant cry for oxygen and exposure. And when the sort of news cycle turns around in your direction, it is the opportunity to make that point and to keep driving home that argument, because it was always a big frustration for people in Dundalk that, they had these great European nights, and in theory, like these great European teams should have been coming to their town and to their locality. And they weren't. Like that business was going to Tala, and it may well be that Sligo Rovers end up in a similar situation, as much as they haven't given up hope. But the time is not on there's a lot of issues not on their side. So that's this is the frustration here, because I think people would acknowledge that the product is better. In saying that, like there's a lot more to do there too, and you can't let a couple of results sort of make you think that everything is fine either. I think that's not the sort of the constructive response to it, as much as you have to enjoy it. But I mean the broader issue, and I do think people are aware of this in positions of authority, and this is the result of sort of years of neglect. But the facilities and the platforms and the stages need to be better, because I actually think the product will be better when you can almost give these clubs a little bit more of an arena to show what they can do. So it is a point you have to make in the midst of any sort of celebration.
Dan, hold that thought for a second. We're going to just sort out a few rocking up and down camera issues with Dan at the moment. I was wondering if we were in a boat there.
Yeah.
But that is a key point, though, Ash, which we'll pick up with Dan in a moment, which is that if clubs particularly are able to get the finances in, or if maybe work can be done with local councils to try and arrange ways of upgrading stadia, that is one way for the League of Ireland to kick themselves to another level here.
Big time, because even some of these teams that are travelling over here, that they're seeing the stadiums and the dressing rooms, the facilities, they're not up to scratch. It's not a secret. We know that. So, even that side of things, it spur you on. This is a small time league club that we're going to play. Like when it's not the case, a lot of the times, look, we've seen the results. So yeah, big time. I think there's a lot of improvements that need to be done, as Dan said. And now I suppose we're in a situation where you can't fill the you can fill the stadiums 2-3 times over probably with the amount of fans that want to come now.
You were on the press conference about Dalymount yesterday with Daniel Lambert in studios a bit earlier this week too, and he was making the point that there's actually a very good way of investing public money here in a product that is very important, and developing players and developing clubs within communities. Obviously he's talking primarily about Dalymount, but they were talking about that yesterday as well. Yeah,
it's a knock-on effect throughout the whole club, throughout the whole town. You know, if you see a stadium that's there, kids see it, you know, it drives the whole thing on. He was speaking a lot about having a terrace, that could be a really big advantage. A lot of football fans want to stand when they come to games, so that was something they're hoping to bring in. At the moment they're still waiting to hear. I think it's September 4th when they really get the confirmation, so we're waiting to hear there, but it's positive news for Bows in that sense.
Yeah, it's a slight tangent, Dan. It's not getting away from the European issue, but it is kind of related to it as well. It would seem for Bows and for Dalymount at this stage that it's looking at a redevelopment as opposed to maybe those shiny designs that we saw last year of what would have been effectively a knockdown and rebuild.
Yeah, no, I think it is not it's not a tangent because it's sort of relevant to the broader debate, as you mentioned. I mean, Bows played in the Aviva last year. There was obviously an element of they were great events as it happened, and they used home advantage. But again, you know, they had great nights that they weren't able to play in their base. But yeah, it does appear to be that way. I don't know. Like, I just get frustrated by this stuff because it's so slow. I mean, Dalymount was meant to be a Euro 2020 legacy project. It's such an Irish football tale. I mean, Euro 2020 didn't even end up coming here in the end either, for sort of different reasons. But like, you sort of get to the stage where you believe it when you see it with some of it without needing to be too world weary about it. But it does appear like perhaps on paper it's a little bit more realistic. This plan that is being proposed. I mean, I think there is a sort of a degree of self-awareness that there is a quite high spend of sort of public money on this project. So you obviously have to be it has to be appropriate level of spending, I suppose. But I suppose the flip side of that is, I mean, you know, there's obviously been significant public spending in Cala, but look at what that facility has brought to the area and surrounds, not just for, say, one League of Ireland club, but under 21 games, the Senior Women's Internationals, the Finland game, which is sold out now, and other sports have actually been able to use that facility as well too. And I think, you know, this broader point, like, I've travelled around Europe covering League of Ireland clubs, and it just drives you mad, like, sort of seeing the facilities, and particularly you could go to Scandinavia, you know, the Nordic region. I'm sure maybe Sligo Rovers might even experience it next week. Like, you go there and there's these massive sort of municipal facilities which are shared by all sports, by all codes, like several versions of that sort of dome that Connacht GAA have, but it's one that's used by multiple sports, multiple disciplines.
Was it Luxembourg, Dan, who had that really nice about 10,000 seater that Ireland played in as well?
Yeah, like this is it. You don't need, like, we're not talking about sort of big white elephant sort of 30,000 seater venues or something like that. It's more purpose-built, smaller arenas, which look like, you know, there's people in position now who are probably inheriting a lot of problems. And, you know, I would make the point that, like, Irish football boomed in the golden eras, you know, of Jack Charlton, where every politician wanted to be pictured, you know, around a football event, around a match, around something. And that was really the time that you possibly could have driven the stadium argument. And for whatever reason, people weren't thinking that way. It was very much eyes on the prize, the tunnel vision of the senior team, and that was it. So you're sort of playing catch up now, and that's frustrating. But this is why, like, these results, these games, you have to use that to drive the broader argument.
Now, in terms of what happened on the pitch, you were at the showgrounds last night. Rockin played really well, beat Motherwell over 2 legs. We've been chatting about throughout the show. So they go with probably hope more than expectation to play against Viking in Norway next week. But for Sligo particularly, like, it's not that long ago, Dan, that I remember they had the fundraising boxes out to try and get money into the club. And now here they are with the best part of £1 million coming in over this run in Europe now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I walked into the ground last night, Will, and, you know, the first thing I was met by someone I know on the club's board who handed me a leaflet, you know, about sort of getting the message out that, you know, they're looking to recruit more members, you know, because it's a member-owned club. They have a certain amount of owners and they're looking for more. They would make the point that they don't have sort of a benefactor or sort of a sugar daddy who's able to maybe at the end of the year meet any shortfall. I mean, you know, pretty much what they what they earn, they have to try and put back into the club. And like that is the sort of the romance of the story, but it's the ongoing struggle of the story as well too, that like this money really does matter to them. Like you look at the Sligo Rovers broader plan, like they want to improve their facilities, their training ground. There's no doubt like they can make a strong argument for the benefits of what they bring to the community, because in recent years they've sort of improved their academy, and there's sort of kids from all around the region involved. Like there's Niall Morahan last night from Leitrim. It was Caelan Barlow, another local. There's people from Mayo involved, players from Mayo involved, sprinkled in around with some sort of outside overseas recruits. So there is sort of there's a broader story to what they're doing there. And while yes, like it may well be that the next round is a bridge too far, although it's a little bit of a free hit for them. So you never know. I think the value of what they've done this year will stand to them in the long run either way.
You were very impressed by Caelan Barlow as well, Dan.
Yeah, no, like he's I didn't know too much about him, to be honest. And I was only chatting to Conor O'Grady, who's the head of the academy, afterwards about him. And he was like, no, I mean, this isn't a surprise to us. And this is the thing, like they in the last year, they had Johnny Kenny, who went to Celtic. Basically, he came through, had one season, he was gone. Ed McGinty gone to Oxford. John Matten's gone to St Johnstone. Like, it's what you have to do. I know you've had discussions on the show this week about sort of the exodus of players and, getting the right value for players. And that's obviously, a debate that will continue. But there is no doubt that through the sort of the national underage leagues and some of the changes in recent years, the Brexit point that's obviously been well documented, we are seeing more exciting young players coming through into the league. The flip side of that is you may not see them for too long, but they are there, and that is encouraging.
Yeah, it's frustrating. You almost want to keep some of them under wraps if you possibly can, and putting them on TV against Motherwell, where sides in the UK may well have seen them because on Premier Sports, then you could easily lose them if they have a very good game. But that is the nature, unfortunately, of the League of Ireland. And I suppose the thing is, Dan, I was listening to the debate around it that Nathan was having last night. The killer is that for agents, they're going to want to put in these low release clauses which will see players leave, and League of Ireland clubs who've had to develop these players along the way don't necessarily get a very nice cut of the transfer deal. It's like we hear about the Matt Dohertys, we hear about the Gavin Bazunu deals being quite good for Shamrock Rovers, but they are very few and far between when the deal is that lucrative for the League of Ireland team.
Yeah, no, and I listened to Pat Deane, who was on last night, and I mean there's definitely there's two sides to this argument. Again, there can be no arguing with the fact that it's completely understandable why these players will go and pursue the opportunities that are offered to them. They're going to earn better money. They are going to a sort of a bigger shop window over there. I think most people within the game here sort of understand that. But in saying that too, there's definitely a perception of Ireland as a sort of a bargain basement operation that is definitely fueled and allows sort of agents, I think, to really drive home the clauses and to say, our player will not sign for your club unless you give this clause. And they hold a lot of power. And I think, sometimes people talk about massive, thinking that we're expecting sort of, $500,000 for every player or something like that. I don't think that's the case. But in saying that, good players going for 30 grand is ridiculous. It's absolutely preposterous. But again, that comes back to the broader point that people from overseas come to our league. They see, stadiums that are sort of substandard, a lot of inadequacies here, and that probably strengthens the argument for saying, well, why would we pay money here? A lot of the coaches at this club are volunteers. They're not even paid coaches, and they can construct all sorts of arguments to justify the bargain basement prices. What you probably hope is that the 7 or 8 who've done well this year almost become flag bearers if they do very well. Well, then of course it's easier to look for more next time. But there's two sides to the argument, and I think everyone will spin it in their direction very favourably, including agents.
And last night, what a night it was for the League of Ireland. It really highlighted it, and it's really put the story out there, and people are actually, I suppose, noticing and seeing what League of Ireland teams can do.
Yeah, no, it's true, actually. And I think, for me, I'm obviously working the beat the whole year round, but the best time is always these European games. As much as sort of one-off results can be very deceiving in both directions, there can be a knee-jerk reaction if they're bad. there can probably be an overreaction when they're good, to be honest. But I think, you have to sort of find your place in the calendar. I mean, I know, Will, you were tweeting about this week, and I know the gap in the inter-county season is obviously a contentious one, and it's not a case like there's multi-sport fans everywhere who can like all sports. But I think it is true that you do have this month of August now where there isn't a huge amount in terms of like major Irish-based sporting news stories. And for me, there's a sense of, okay, wouldn't it be great if this was the time of the year where maybe people got engaged with these sort of European matches a bit more? And also, and Conan touched on it there, our clubs don't always make it as far as August, but when they do, if you can make them bigger events and sort of give these events a little bit of momentum and exposure, because they're really interesting games, and in other countries, like they're often bigger news than they are here. I mean, you can watch some of the games this week on TV in other countries, but you can't watch it here. And I know the reasons for that. And it's not a case of just having to go at broadcasters, because they have valid points they can raise too. But I think you have to get to the stage where the interest is such that the broadcasters have no option.
I, by the way, didn't want to admit to Conan earlier on, but our WhatsApp group here in the office watched a Slovenian stream of the penalties with St. Pat's last night because we were able to find one. But that is the bizarre thing, Dan, and in some ways it's like the Father Ted quote, maybe I like the misery. There is something about being a League of Ireland fan and having to find some obscure stream somewhere to watch a game that almost adds to the enjoyment of it. I remember sitting with Shane Keegan in this office a few years ago when it was the middle of the pandemic. I think we watched the derby between Bows and Rovers, and it was someone with like one of those Kitman cameras that had linked it into his laptop, and we were watching it behind closed doors. Like you almost have to go the extra step for the League of Ireland, which adds to the enjoyment a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I should contractually say in some way, I mean, it wasn't available on LOI TV. I mean, people just have a mental block about paying for like journalistic or, subscriber content, when they paid on a coffee or a pint without thinking about it, So that is the thing. But it is, look, I know exactly what you're saying. Like I think the Sheriff Dundalk game a couple of years ago, which was a penalty shootout, it somehow ended up being streamed on YouTube by some... it
was literally a guy in a phone.
Yeah, I think I ended up like you could hook it through YouTube through casting or whatever. But I see your point about people sort of revel in that misery to some degree, but I also hate that too. Like, I mean, it should be, as I said, you're in Tala the other night. There's like the Bulgarian Tony O'Donoghue or whatever is doing like, a pitch side report during the game. Like, this game has been digested. Like, they probably covered their Champions League teams there, like we might cover, say, Leinster or sort of Munster here. These are big sort of events, and yet sometimes here you're sort of struggling for any mention at all. And it can sort of, it can sort of, it can lead to a sort of an angry complex then building up in people screaming for that coverage, which sort of creates a sort of a cycle of anger around what should be a sort of an enjoyable time. So like that's the, that is the sort of the slight dysfunction that is sort of cemented here.
I think some people, Dan, assumed that Rovers were just going to be on the TV on Tuesday because the previous round had been shown. And I appreciate that, like, RT were somewhat caught up because they were committed to showing all of the games at the Women's European Championship. So you had England and Sweden on the same night. But you would have thought we'd go on to news now, or we're getting to a point where maybe alternatives should be available in those circumstances. Like, our champions should really be available to watch in every round of Europe.
Listen, I think so. I think RTB did flag that some way out. And I think sometimes they do absorb a lot of the grief, and there obviously are other broadcasters who could step in. And again, I'm not ignorant to the facts that like some of those would have commercial concerns. And as well, I would make this point too, that when our teams win, obviously you sort of bang the drum about it, but you have to be prepared to sort of ship some losses too, and the discourse and the debate that comes with that. And at times there's been some bad performances that people are probably been happy weren't on TV. But I think you have to get to the stage where these are sort of, as I said, sort of an ingrained part of the calendar, that they are on the box in some shape or form. I don't think it's really possible to do it because of individual rights issues, but I'd love to see it structured into the TV deal in some way, that these games almost, they have to be shown. But I know that that's probably a hard thing to enforce and sort of slot into the deal that's there at the moment. But I think there has to be more inventive ways at times, or it has to be more imaginative ways to get these games broadcast to a wider audience. Like, it's not as if there was a huge amount else going on last night, but again, were people optimistic about those clubs going through? Were they screaming beforehand that all these games should be on? Some people were. Everyone else is latching onto it a little bit in the aftermath. But I think it's the perennial question. But maybe next year we say that. Like last year, we had the same level of success. That in the sense of the clubs that got to the third round, the volume of clubs that got to the third round. So the hope, I suppose, is that this becomes more regular. And if it's not just every so often. If it starts to happen on a regular basis, then that argument sort of makes itself.
I just want to let you go, Dan. Conan's stake was going to be very difficult for Sligo and Pats to go through against Viking and against CSKA Sofia particularly. Are we hopeful though that Shamrock Rovers, especially what we saw in that second leg against Ludogorets, that Shamrock Rovers might be able to get to the group stages?
Yeah, I think that's realistic. The champions, Shamrock Rovers, even if they lose their next tie against the champions of Macedonia, they get another go to get into the Conference League, whereas sort of Sligo or Pats do or die in every round. So Shamrock Rovers play the champions of Macedonia, Shkupi, who are decent. They pushed Dynamo Zagreb close, but I have to say, it's a lower ranked league. There comes a point where if you want to make that next step, it's one thing to lose to Ludogorets and look at them and go, we can't compete. They have a wage bill of X amount. They pay this amount for a player. That's perfectly understandable and reasonable. It's harder to sell that point if you lose to the champions of Macedonia or Estonia, as it was last year. I think if Rovers play as well as they can wrap up group stage football with a round to spare. But that's the sort of the bridge they have to cross now.
Dan, cheers for joining us on OTB AM.
Thank you.
It's Bank Holiday weekend. Hopefully you're all going to have an enjoyable one. It means that OTB AM is back on Tuesday morning, 7:30. I'll be joined by Johnny Ward in studio. We'll be reflecting on the All-Ireland Ladies Football Final, the Euro 2022 Final between England and Germany. Anthony Moyles will be with us as well to pick his Football 15 of the Year. No easy thing to do this year, particularly defensively. So many people are arguing in their All-Star 15s. Right now, though, we are leaving you with the Irish football agent Pat Deane, who joined Nathan Murphy on last night's Off the Ball to share some fascinating insights into the tough industry. Delighted to have Ash alongside me on this Friday morning as well. Enjoy the long weekend.
So there's been any amount of talk over the last few weeks about the exodus of young players from the League of Ireland. Shamrock Rovers losing Danny Mandreu to Lincoln. Darragh Burns has left Pats to go to MK Dons. And really mixed views on whether this is a good or a bad thing for Irish football. And the deals, not much money coming into the League of Ireland, how damaging it is to the league to be losing their best young players mid-season for little or no money. While others feel that pre-Brexit, a lot of these players would have gone to England anyways at 14 or 15, and that they are now actually being better served by remaining at home in the league before moving across in their late teens or early 20s. Pat Deane is with Quorum Sports. He's an agent with Quorum Sports, and he has brokered quite a few deals over the past few weeks, including Dawson Devoy's move from Bohemians to MK Dons, Promise Omashare also leaving Bows to move to Fleetwood Town, and also one of the more interesting ones, which saw Liam Kerrigan move from UCD to Italy to sign with Como. Pat is on the line. Evening, Pat.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening.
As I say, we've spoken a lot about this over the last few weeks and the reasons behind it, and there's definitely a lot of frustration, I think, when people see somebody of the quality of Danny Mandreu, who's arguably been Shamrock Rovers, the league leader's best player this season, move to League One for in or around €30,000. You're obviously spending a lot of time looking at the League of Ireland. Why is it happening this way, and why are, say, League One sides and sides around Europe taking such an interest in the league at the moment?
Well, the factors are, I would say, Brexit is definitely a major factor. The clubs used to have players put to them from France, Sweden, Norway, Holland, Belgium, and in League One would have had a lot. Those players now won't be able to get past the threshold needed to get a work permit in the UK, whereas the Irish lads are eligible via the Common Travel Area, which has been around over 100 years. So that's why the League One clubs and the Championship clubs are looking at the Irish market, because it's a market that they know there's no language issues and there's no work permit issues, because to bring a player in, you do need especially in England, Scotland has a sort of like a little bit of a lower threshold with their exceptions panel, but an English club bringing in players from Europe now would have to get 15 points, and that would be, say, for example, if you played in the Bundesliga, you'd get 9 points. But if you played in Bundesliga 2, you'd only get 4 points. So those clubs aren't looking at Bundesliga 2 now. So that's the factor, whereas the Irish lads don't have that, don't have those issues to get any points. They can just, it's automatically under the common travel area. But in the reverse, the Liam's gone to a Serie B club, Como. They can't bring in players, non-EU players. So they can't bring in British players unless they had previously played in Italy. So that's why a lot of the Italian clubs are looking at the Irish market, because again, they're utilising the fact that they're members of Europe and the EU. So that's what I think it is mainly. It's mainly Brexit.
We might look at it from both sides then, from the club sides and from the players' side. From the English league clubs at the moment, say then, League One, when they're looking at Ireland and they're looking for value, how much time are they spending assessing the players? Because there is quite a bit of money in League One, and you know the speculation is that some of the players have gone from, say, €1,000 a week to €3,000 a week, so it's in some ways a bit of a no-brainer. But the likes of MK Don signing Darragh Burns and Dawson Devoy, are they spending a lot of time doing their due diligence on these players, or are they able to take a risk on bringing these players in because there's not much of an outlay for the clubs that they're buying from?
No, not at all. And there seems to be sort of like I seen it was reported in one of the papers that, like, even with Liam Kerrigan going to Como, that there wasn't money involved. There was money involved, and a substantial amount of money. So there's a
and is that upfront money?
Yeah. And then on rewards, if the player does well, the club does well. So no, I mean, everybody's talking about, say, Danny's one, and because he was such a high-profile player, and I presume when his agent did the deal, that was one of the considerations that he put into the contract, and rightly so, because Danny was, it was always going to attract interest from England. And what you don't want to do is for a player to sort of like have a massive hurdle of, say, an unrealistic fee, because maybe championship clubs can afford big money, and of course the Premier League can afford big money, but there's 24 clubs in League One. I would say only 8 of them, or maybe 9 of them, are in the market to buy players of significant value. So, but it doesn't mean they don't offer an opportunity. Like Lincoln would be a very well-run club,
You're all right.
With Danny going there, he's gonna experience, an unbelievable professionalism. But he'll be playing the likes of Derby, Ipswich, Charlton, Bolton, Barnsley. It's a different level, and there's a bigger exposure.
There's no doubt about that, Pat, that when you look at some of those teams and the fan bases that are there and the overall budgets of the club, that League of Ireland teams simply can't compete. But these League One teams, in a way, they mustn't be able to believe their luck, that they're able to go and attract players of the quality of a Danny Mandrea or a Darragh Burns, who've been playing men's football, who haven't been playing in youth leagues, who aren't tested, who've been playing European football, that they can get these players at such a good rate.
Yeah. It's definitely not they're not thinking they're going to. Well, Danny's a bit different because I don't know the ins and outs of that deal, but Darragh Burns wasn't cheap. Dawson Devoy wasn't cheap, and Promise O'Shea wasn't cheap. So when I see on social media some of the figures banded about, they're wrong. The players are, how would I put it, 21. Dawson's only 20 years old. Promise is 21 years of age. They probably got hopefully 10 good years in their career. where are they going to be able to buy a house from? They want to have something out of football. So, do they really want to go over at 23 or 24 on a Bosman? No. I mean, and that's why if we take away the Danny Mandry one, the other ones weren't as cheap as people think they were at all. And the other question you asked me was, say, someone like MK Dons, what was their... MK Dons have been following these players, I presume, for years. I know that for a fact with Dawson, and I would exactly the same thing with Dara as well. They're very, very hands-on. They've always been very pro-Irish players. I know their director of football's been over lots of times over in Ireland watching League of Ireland games. So it's not they're not getting players on the cheap, but there is value for money in the League of Ireland. I'll grant you that. But the other thing is the sell-ons for the clubs will be lucrative, because like a club like MK, they've sold Harry Darling, they've sold Scott Twine. They've only been at the club for a year and a bit. So, it's going to benefit the League of Ireland in the long run, because there'll be money coming back into the league from deals done in 2022. And it might be coming back into the league in a bit like the Matt Doherty thing when he went from Wolves to Tottenham 10 years later. I think that's the exception. But I do feel that the clubs in England now respect the League of Ireland, and it does give them an element of the unknown, because there's certain clubs that know the market well. Portsmouth brought over Ronan Curtis a few years ago, so they know, I know the head of recruitment there very well. He's always very on the ball with regards to players in Ireland. So I think now the ones that had shied away from Ireland, that hadn't really done any business in Ireland, I think they're now questioning why they're not doing it. So that's probably why you've seen the Oxfords go over, do some business. But I think it's good. I think it's good for the players, because they're getting over there. They're going to be exposed to, the natural clubs that will look at them will be the championship clubs. So whereas a player maybe in the past would have gone into the championship and maybe not been ready at that level yet, I think League One will provide them with a development plan to be able to proceed up to the championship. And I think with all the deals that have been done, I would say nearly all of them have got sell-ons.
I understand what you're saying about some of those deals that you feel they're being reported wrong, but like, fans are looking at the value that their clubs are getting, and I guess they're also looking at other stages of English football and thinking they're getting a raw deal in terms of the upfront payment for players. And like Daniel Lambert of Bohemians was talking about the clubs needing a better united front, a collective agreement, and talking about the get out clauses they're in the different contracts, saying that will require trust and cooperation not yet seen by League of Ireland clubs, that the biggest impediment to upfront fees are agent get out clauses, and these can be counteracted by clubs having a collective agreement to a certain level where no club breaks it and delivers higher fees for all. And listen, obviously you have a very vested interest in all of this in a different way, but do you think there's a way of the clubs working together to get a better value to keep players in the league for longer?
And I can fully understand that. But again, if Promise or Dawson didn't have a release clause, would they be playing in the English league this season? I doubt it, because, maybe the valuation. I've seen transfers fall flat on their face in England on two clubs having two totally different views of what the player's worth. And I think with the release clauses, because again, these weren't cheap release clauses. They were not, they weren't insignificant amounts of money. It clears the player that if a club comes in and prepared to pay a decent amount of money, it then allows the player to go off and earn a decent amount of money for themselves. And
what is a decent amount of money, just in terms of fees, do you think, for like Dawson Devoy's an Ireland under-21 international? Is 100 grand for a League One club a decent amount of money, or should it be $500,000?
I would honestly say to you, there'd be clubs in League One that would never pay 100,000. They wouldn't have the ability to pay 100,000. they wouldn't have the big boys, the Ipswiches. Of course, they would, but the only people that can pay probably a lot more regularly than 100,000 on a transfer fee would be the Championship. So it's a different road. It's going over there. I mean, the amount of games in League One is ridiculous. There's 30 games between now and Christmas, I think, for majority of the clubs. So if a player goes over, say, for 100,000, and then with the exposure of 80, 90 games in League One, a big club, say Middlesbrough, comes in and says, right, we want to pay 7 figures, then the club in Ireland, of course, is going to benefit. But would a Middlesbrough come in and pay 7 figures for a player in Ireland? The exceptions have been, Gavin Bazuna, who's done fantastically, but they are the exception. So the players who, like I said, who have benefited from, say, the schoolboy football changing a bit, where it goes into the clubs, and the clubs, they do deserve development money, but not if, say, for example, that they put an unrealistic amount. The player's not going, and the other side of the coin as well. And as an agent, I've got players who I've had managers ring me up and ask to tear the contract up. We don't want him, and we can't afford him. Can you persuade him? So, there's an element of, he's under contract, he's our player, we have to give permission. But on the other breath, when the players, and a lot of these boys, I'd say 85, 90%, I'd love to know the exact figure, are on 40, 42-week end-of-season contracts. So there's no security for them, and that's what you've got to understand. These lads have been given an opportunity to get 3 or 4 years of, good money, good training, good facilities, playing in front of bigger crowds. And, the way 90% of the deals are structured, once they make it, and a lot more League of Ireland players are making it now, maybe because they don't go over as early. But once they make it, then the clubs will be talking about, fantastic, such and such has now, done very well. Has got, like Luke McNally got bought after a year at Oxford United. So there's money going in there. So I think we look at the positives and not the negatives, and be realistic, because I get on well with Daniel, and he fought very hard with the clubs to get as good a deal as possible for Bohemians, and they have got a good deal on both the players that I got involved with. But there's also the other. What about the players who they don't want? What about the players who are on 40-week contracts? They can't get a mortgage, can't buy a house. Do you know what I mean? It's not just the lads who are going over and have made it. There's a so if they say, we won't have a release clause, will the clubs unite? I don't think they will, because I do think that there's commercial instincts will kick in. The manager wants the player, and they get offered a decent release clause. Just say a 6-figure release clause. Why would they turn that down?
If somehow for the first time ever all of the League of Ireland clubs managed to put forward a united front, what would it mean for you as an agent? How much more difficult would it make your job?
The uncertainty creeps in, and the uncertainty is I'm using an English club or a Scottish club as an example to the UK. There might be a preconception that the club's got more money than they actually have. Do you see what I'm saying? So, no, we want more, or they might want to hold out for a bigger club to come in, but the bigger club might not be the fit for the player. So, for example, a bigger club might want the player, but he might be a year away from the first team. Whereas the players enjoyed first team experience with the League of Ireland club, and they want to keep the momentum going. So maybe there's to get to the big championship or the big Premier League club, there might be another stepping stone.
But I'm thinking more that we look at it at the moment that like the League One clubs in a way hold all the aces because they can offer a fee, albeit some may say not substantial, but even if it's 100,000 for a player, they can also maybe triple a player's wages, offer them a better life. But actually the League One clubs' opportunities to bring player in have also been restricted because of Brexit. So there aren't too many places they can look for quality players outside of Ireland. So actually, everybody coming together with me that those League One clubs would need to start upping whatever money they're spending, would need to start spending it in the league, and the 100,000 goes to suddenly $250,000, which is huge for a League of Ireland club.
Yeah, and that'd be huge. That would be huge for a League One club to pay. Like I said, there'd be maybe 6 clubs that could pay that sort of money. You know,
how many League of Ireland players are you representing at the moment?
I have probably around 12 players I represent, ranging from 18 upwards. And you know, but players like Dawson, Promise, Liam. I've represented Liam 4 years, Promise 5 years. You know, Dawson, 4 years, 5 years as well. So this isn't an overnight thing. These are players that I've worked with for a very long time. Like with Liam now, he's in an unbelievable situation. He's loving it over there. He's got a brilliant opportunity. He's done his exam. He's got his 2-1 there. We always knew when we took him on that he wasn't going anywhere for 4 years. I had loads of clubs, sort of wanting him and whatever, and each one I said he's going nowhere until he finishes his exams, and he finished his exams mid-May, and that was it. Now he's going to give football 100%, so, and I think where he's gone to has been a brilliant fit. I went over there with him and his father, a beautiful part of the world, and like I said, now was there 5 players have gone over to Italy, so it isn't just the UK, and the Italians club have more money than League One. Yes, they do. Yeah, but
a lot of the League of Ireland clubs are now better run than they were 5-10 years ago. When you look at those, say, dozen players you have, if a League of Ireland club came and offered them a 3-year contract with no get-out clause, would you allow them to sign it?
I would have to paint the picture that commercially, unless they're getting paid a commercial wage, which is, again, going back to most professional footballers, if you ask them what's your goals, they want to play as high as they can, but they also want, say, at least a house out of it. And I keep harping on about it, but
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Yeah. Sean has muted himself, I think. I'm not sure what's going on there. Paul, come on, you come in. You can finish the job from another Bulls fan. Are you standing beside Sean?
Yeah, we're all on the spot, but